Welcome to Midnight's Edge After Dark. That's right. I am Tom Connors. With me is Script Doctor. How are you?
I am well. Happy to be here this evening.
Glad to have you here. How's the weather in Canada today?
Rainy and cold with a little bit of a burst of heat here and there. It's very peculiar.
I was going to say, I was curious. I asked because we got a heat wave here today. We've officially had like 2 weeks in a row where in Wisconsin we've had all 4 seasons within that week. Twice. So it was like 70-some degrees today. But it was like freezing and all that crap earlier in the week. And snowing last week, mind you.
Wow.
So yeah.
Jeez.
That's Wisconsin for you. But yeah, I was curious if you guys were having a heat wave where you're at too. But we're glad to have you here, Script. And hopefully you've had a wonderful day.
Very productive. I was going to stream this morning, but unfortunately I couldn't find the brown eggs I was reminded of on Nina's stream last night to buy.
Ruh-roh. You couldn't find the brown eggs.
I went shop. Nina showed me a picture of some celebrities wearing Halloween costumes, and one of them, the costume reminded me that I had to pick up a dozen brown eggs. And I was out hunting for them this morning, but I could only find the white eggs. So
okay, you confused me. You made it sound like you had bought them already, and you just misplaced them. Like those are eggs, brother. They're no good if you ain't got them in the fridge. You can have some chicks. No, I'm not.
I had to go through 3 different grocery stores to find brown eggs.
No, I hear you. I understand now.
You like those better?
White
What you're saying? You discriminating?
Yeah, he likes the dark eggs. He likes them.
Oh yeah, you gotta change it up every once in a while.
He likes the brown eggs. Joining us. He's orange, not brown. Clobby! How you doing, Clobbering Times?
Hey, man. All right. Thanks for having me. Good to see you. Good to see you,
How you been?
All right, man. Hello out there in the chat. Doing great. Looking forward to hanging out with you tonight. And then, of course, with Nick later on this big Toxic show. So, doing good,
What's
man.
the movie tonight? I don't even remember.
Dr. No.
Oh, that's right. I'm taking most of this month off. Even though I've seen Dr. No, I have very little
60
Bond
years anniversary
knowledge.
for that one.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave that all to you guys. You don't have to worry about competing with me tonight.
I hear you. 60 years of that movie is wow. I mean, since Bond started in theaters, that's amazing. Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Hey, Andy, look at Andy out there. Look at all the great chat with Stephanie and Andy.
Oh, we got Andy here. I'll send you a link, Andy, if you're not busy. You can hop in.
He is a creator there, a maker.
The creator.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, what's going on out there in the Geekverse today?
Let's see if I can find Andy. Andy, now that I got clippers, see, this is that thing I was supposed to do for you. That was what I was waiting for. Now I can do that, so I'll do that as soon as I can. I was looking like Santa Claus there. I'm like, I need to take care of this shit. And my clippers broke. I'm like, fuck.
Oops.
Well, they didn't break, but they're like pulling more hair than they were cutting, so I'm like, yeah, I need new ones.
No, you just gotta take it apart and clean it out and then put it back together.
I tried. It was one of those cheapies that you're not supposed to use oil on. I cleaned it out and everything, and it got worse.
Oh.
So it was like, it was one of those, like, I don't know if you call it really, like, disposable, because it was an electric one, but it was a cheapie. And I got something similar this time, too.
I invested in the hairdresser clippers, the really expensive ones. They're great for shaving beards.
Well, maybe that part of it, but I was going to say, like, to me, I don't really need to go all out.
You always do sandpaper like the astronauts did back in the day.
Well, it looks like YouTube is not sharing out the link.
Well,
so,
I got the notification thingy.
Yeah, well, hopefully more people do. So go ahead and share out the link if you guys haven't already.
Do it again.
Not you guys, but I mean just everybody in general. And hit that like button as well.
I haven't shared it on Facebook.
I'm going to share it on my in the group and on Twitter. That might help as well. Yeah, we got a couple super chats. Let's start off here. We got Beat Bop Boop, who said, with Brian Fuller as showrunner, I'm pretty happy. And he's talking about Friday the 13th show. Hannibal is still one of my favorite shows, and hopefully Crystal Lake will be just as good. We're going to get into that, as you can tell by the thumb. Zontar says, between the success of Top Gun Maverick, and the talking about Martinsville Wall Pass last Sunday, When is Days of Thunder 2 happening? What the hell is Martinsville Wall Pass?
I don't know.
I do not know.
I
do
guess
not know.
it's a racing term.
Hey.
Someone in racing did a wall pass, which
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
listen, if you've been driving in Montreal, Canada for any time, that's kind of standard procedure. Like the same as like driving up on the sidewalk to get in front of a slow driver.
I should have known was Zontar. It's always something to do with racing. And, of course, Days of Thunder 2 being the good job, script.
It should be called Days of Lightning because thunder comes before
Right?
lightning.
Comes after the lightning. Honestly, if they're going to do one, do it now before you lose what's-his-face, Duvall.
Robert Duvall.
Yeah. Because otherwise, that's the only one of his franchises that I could see doing a revival sequel like Maverick. But then again, you risk doing what everybody kind of predicted Maverick was going to do. And because like lightning in a bottle only happens once in a great while. I don't know if you want to tempt fate like that more than once. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's not something that's come up. And again, I agree that's one of his only franchises that, or could be a franchise, I guess. Mikey, welcome to the program, my friend.
What up?
How was your trip?
Which trip? I went to see a client today.
Well, no, but you just got back here the other day, and you were
in Texas for a while, yeah.
Yeah,
right,
dude.
yeah.
It was fucking exhausting. It was fun as fuck. It was unbelievably fun.
What was that? What'd you do?
The meetup with Loki for Valhalla.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that last weekend, huh, man? Cool.
It was fantastic. It was absolutely. If we ever do a Midnight's Edge meetup, I want to be on the planning committee of that shit. I mean, it was fucking fantastic.
You didn't go to the one in Orlando. You went to the one week before in Dallas, right?
Yeah, no, dude.
Gotcha.
I was
Are
too
you
tired to go.
kidding me? Who else do you think we're going to go to for the strippers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Mexican Iron Man is chairman of the evening festivities committee.
Yes.
And why would we go to the strip club when Mexican Iron Man can do some research and have the strippers come to us?
Exactly.
Oh my.
Hey, but Tom will be like, Midnight's Edge After Dark, signing out koalas in the rain. Is Tom here?
It's raining dollar bills, y'all.
Mikey says I have to sit on his bald head. Where's Tom?
It's raining dollar bills, y'all.
And Script Doctor can't go because he's 12. All right, the Script Doctor's underage.
Oh, wow.
It's inflation. The Canadian age is not as valuable as the American age right now.
Speaking of someone who ages well, here's a man who I wish I could look like. Mr. Andy Masterson, how are you doing? He's fully articulated as well.
Andy.
All right, that was kind of strange with that sound effect. I was like,
weird.
whoa, what's going on there?
Shit, I forgot.
Andy Masterson,
Sorry.
master of his microphone at long last.
Well, maybe. There's always room for boomerang. I was just thinking, guys, like, I think the Tom Cruise vehicle that could be done is The Color of Money, which was a sequel to
Oh, yeah, that's
The
right.
Hustler.
The Hustler.
The Hustler.
Yeah,
and then you switch it, and now Tom Cruise is Paul Newman.
right.
That could happen.
Can we get Zac Efron for that?
Why?
I
It just
don't know.
dawned on
thought
me. I
it
just
sounded
realized
funny.
I just realized we're live.
Yeah.
We've
Are we?
been
Oh,
live,
damn it.
dude.
I thought we were not live yet.
Yeah, I only
We
have
do
2 minutes.
usually start
I
at
have a
6
class
o'clock.
coming in, but
When have
Oh,
we
all
ever
right,
started
Andy.
at 6 o'clock?
It's like 6:30, man.
I know, but when have we ever started at 6 o'clock? Let's do it that.
To be fair, I started at like 18 after.
Hi, chat. Mexican
You're
Iron Man
wasting
here.
Andy's time.
did you guys hear about the thing in the Nerdist about they've just cast Wonder Man from Marvel?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
a Marvel
wonderful
guy, so I,
casting.
Go
I mean,
again.
good actor, but not for Wonder Man.
Yep, not Simon Williams.
I never cared that much, and I stopped caring a long time ago.
I used to hear that James Gunn was going to try to get Nathan Fillion for that, and I never really thought that would have been perfect. And Simon Williams is here we go again. And this new Marvel Legends out with him of Wonder Man, which I kind of would like to get.
Here, who wants to see the impression? Who wants to see a Mexican that and what he thinks about Marvel? Ready?
Yeah, well, stop being Iron Man then. If you know that way.
No, that's different. That's Iron Man. He's awesome.
Listen to him bust your wave out.
Well, that's different because like the way that kid. I mean,
Are they brown?
Make yourself Mexican Superman then instead of Mexican
I
Iron
told
Man.
Doomcock the way I told Doomcock that when we came up with my name on that call, God, it was now 4 years ago. I said, I said, well, one of my clients says I have a personality like Tony Stark, kind of arrogant and a little bit know-it-all. He's like, well, how about Iron Man? And I'm like, well, how about Iron Mexican? He's like, no, how about Mexican Iron Man? I'm like, all right, sold. Let's go.
But since you're a DC guy, how about Mexican Flash?
I worked really.
You know
hard
what?
for that
You know
job.
what? You know what?
What?
You know what?
What?
Tom, what button do I mute him? How do I do that?
I don't know.
I'll do it for you if you want.
You know what?
Hey, Andy.
Script Doctor said last Friday that
Hey,
he
Tom.
was gonna if he got hired by Warner Brothers to fix the DC universe. Why do people say DCEU? Because there's no DCEU.
I don't know.
Thank
Never
you.
has been.
God, I hate
It's
this.
I know where
DC
it came
Studios now. DC
I know
Film.
exactly where it came from. A journalist was trying to mock the fact that Warner Brothers didn't have a Marvel Cinematic Universe equivalent, so he threw in the E. And people who like Zack Snyder really fell into it. And
Hey,
all the
we
more
just
reason
didn't
not
get
to use
the
it.
joke.
Hey, you guys be nice to me because I'm in a healing process as a post-Snyder trauma survivor.
You're taking your first step
He's
into a
right.
larger world.
Hi, my name is Mike, and I have been
Hi, Mike.
Snyderverse free for 1 year. When did the Snyder movie come out? 1 year, 6 months,
Yeah.
3 weeks,
Oh, Justice League,
2 days, and this afternoon.
something like that.
As president of the Snyder Hate Club, I accept you and embrace you into our order.
My life became unmanageable, and I found myself on Twitter saying all kinds of crazy horse shit.
You are now one of us, my son.
I also continuously retweeted everything that he did religiously, and I recruited other people to be Snyder robots.
You are forgiven.
My life became unmanageable until things got to a point where I actually woke up at 6:30 in the morning one day on a Sunday to join Zack Snyder for one of his stupid freaking home viewing parties. Meanwhile, he turned around and was a betrayer and a traitor to geeks and gamers. But now, through
Your eyes are open.
But now my eyes are open, and through the loving support of Script Doctor and Clobby and Tom Connors and Andy Masterson, I have found a way to heal. That's my survivor story. Thank you.
I sent him a Zack Snyder punching bag that he can hit.
Oh, nice.
That is awesome.
Wait, let me ask you, can you break its neck, though?
Or rebreakable neck. That would be better because you could do it more than once.
The boxing bell, you could make that into Zack Snyder's head upside down because every time you hit it, it would break his neck.
Okay, the chat is fucking hilarious right now.
So yeah, Andy, how you been?
Not too bad. Just it was a long week. Just got home from Florida today.
How was that?
Spirit sucks. I had the worst luck with food while I was away. I pulled into a Burger King. They had a sign. Well, actually, we got into town. My son's very picky. He's like, really picky. So we pull into the Waffle House, and it's right down the street from my in-laws' place where we've stayed for, since he was a little kid. And he's 23 now. So pull into the Waffle House, and the Waffle House is closed. And I see next to it, there's a brand new Waffle House. So we go into the Waffle House. We sit there for 15 minutes with lots of help walking around us, and they ignore us. So we get up and leave. Then we go to Denny's, where we did get a good meal. Then the next day, we were running around trying to get things together, and we did the whole meet up there with Geeks and Gamers and stuff, and handed out some stuff for the guys. Great conversations with all of them. And so then we're headed home. And we've got some pasta at home that he can eat, but like I didn't get anything for myself. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'll just stop at Burger King. So I stop at Burger King and I go to the drive-thru. There's nobody at the drive-thru. Pull up, there's nobody at the window. Pull around, there's a sign on the front door that says, sorry, due to short staffing, we're closed. I'm like, what the hell? So all right, I'll go to Wendy's. I go make a
Why do they
U-turn.
close? Just because they got a bunch of midgets? They can work too.
Very small hands, smell like cabbage.
Yeah.
So then we go to Wendy's, same thing. Like, and then there's two guys out in the street like begging for money, and like there's nobody working at Wendy's or Burger King. So I went and picked up some Popeyes and just had that. And then yesterday we're at Dunkin' Donuts, and the girl hands me the coffee, and it spills all down the front of me, and I got myself a
Damn.
nice, like, first, second degree burn on my stomach. Like, as I'm like, but I promised my son we'd go to Universal, so I sucked it up, and like, and whenever the seatbelt came down, I was like, ooh, that hurt. But other than that, it was a pretty fun time. But that's my luck, the luck of the Irish. It's all bad.
Well, fuck Burger King.
Yeah. Last Whopper, I guess I
And
didn't
their
buy
midget
Whopper.
hating asses.
Yeah.
Wow,
They're
you
just
got
like the new Willow show.
oh wow, you got to meet a lot of cool people and stuff though.
Yeah, it was fun.
Cool.
We had had a good conversation with Jay, talk with Gary for a little bit.
Cool.
His wife, Ryan, Jeremy, place was mob, man. It was like Nick Weiser was talking to him for a while.
Nick.
Culture was talking to for a while. Every time I get up there, like, Scott from Sporky News, he would just like vanish. Like by the time I got up to where Culture was, and like, so I didn't see him again. Ran into a couple of people that recognized me from Doomcock Show. That was cool. Like, talked to them for a little bit. But yeah, had a big Santa sack slung over my shoulder and handed out some stuff for everybody.
Oh, cool.
It was fun.
Nice.
I gave them themed things. They call themselves the Fellowship, so I styled things as a Lord of the Rings theme. So I gave Gary Gandalf the Gary, so he was dressed up as Gandalf. Ryan, of course, like, he had to be Sir Ryan the White, because
Yeah.
yes. Then,
you should have gone for Ryan like a white sheet robe and then like a white hood.
Well, that's it. He's dressed as Saruman, so he's all in white.
Oh my god.
Yeah, with a hood and everything. So
you didn't catch the joke.
Yeah. For Jay.
So you give him stealth mode.
Yeah. For Jay, I gave him, he's always saying Gandalf. So I made him as a hobbit with these big hobbit feet and a bed so he could wake up and say Gandalf. Let's see. What else did I get in there? Quarter Black Garrett. I made Quarter Elf Garrett. He was also a hobbit. And I had Jeremy's all set up to be the Witch King, but but China didn't send me the parts that I needed, so they didn't get there in time. So I didn't get to do that for him. But it was funny. It was good. Oh, Chrissy Mayer too. And because Chrissy Mayer is a ginger, I recast her figure for her so she could, escape the controversy.
Controversy.
What happens with gingers, Mike, when they put on one screen?
They go to Mexican Iron Man's house.
I hope so.
No?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. So, yeah, but that was it. That was fun.
Well, awesome. Well, we're glad to have you here for a few minutes. Hopefully you can stick around for a few more.
I'm happy to have internet that works, unlike Doomcock Show the other night.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like the other night.
Ugh.
Tom, when do you hit mute or something? Because sometimes when you stop talking, it goes. Wah!
He hits mute before he finishes his sentences. That's why.
Oh, sometimes I do that. Well, I think it's because there's a delay because of my Stream Deck. I probably should wait a few seconds longer.
Yep.
That's probably what it is.
Producer note.
Noted. Waltman says, Tom, you got your work cut out for you now, Tom. Since the new Twitter Blue Info is now $8, allows you to do longer video and audio clips. Really? I'm not going to pay for Twitter. I don't give a shit.
I am.
You can pay for mine if you want to, but I'm not.
Okay. I like watching when you get into it with people. It's pretty entertaining.
Oh shit!
You're
gonna get me in trouble.
I just sit there scrolling. I'm like, ah! Oh no, he did. I'm like, I wonder if Tom's gonna. Oh yeah, he did say that. Oh.
Oh my god, he brought up his mother. Yeah, I'll have to check into that, Waltman, evidently on Mike's behest. And then we got Dearest, who sent in a thumbs up super sticker to remind us all to hit the thumbs up. Thank you for that. We got 300 people watching right now. Let's see if we can get 300 likes. That would be amazing. Excuse me. So yeah, the other big news of the day was this Friday the 13th prequel. Have you heard about this, everybody?
Thursday the 12th.
Yes.
I have not.
Funnily enough, Script reminded me that we kind of had some of the beans spilled about this right here on Midnight's Edge After Dark a while back here.
Many months ago, yes.
Yeah, with Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett saying there was a horror series in the works. And
Fangoria.
here's the answer.
They still have the Fangoria mag, or is it just a site now?
I think they revived the magazine too.
Starlog used to own it. I mean, I don't know if they even do Starlog anymore. So
I don't know.
In this and in this prequel, we learned that before Jason was Jason, he was Janet and went through a transitional phase to become the Jason we later love and fear.
oh boy,
What?
nothing. I think Jason's non-binary, right?
I mean, given how big Jason ends up becoming, I guess that was the right move to do.
Well, that's because Janet realizes that she needs to become stunning and brave.
Damn it, Janet.
I better stop giving them ideas.
Well, this is Brian Fuller, so I don't think he's actually going to go that route. The only thing that's up in the air that nobody's been able to confirm is this taking place in like, say, the 60s and 70s as a abstract prequel to
But his mother, about his mother and stuff, who was in the first one,
or the 50s,
Yeah.
or they
40s.
updating it? Because that's the other thing. It's supposed to be updated, they said. So is it going to take place in like the 80s instead of the...
Oh my God, it's 1952, and Jason goes on a one-man spree somewhere in South Carolina to eliminate the racism in South Carolina on the plantation.
Well, he's supposed to be born as a deformed special needs child, right?
How does
Wait,
he
is
get-
that
yes.
will
how does
Ezra
he
Miller
age-
help with
How does
that?
he get big so fast for the second one? Is what I want to know.
Well, he's actually been dead for several years by that point.
Huh?
He
Wasn't
drowned
Ezra
in
Miller
1954.
Wasn't Ezra Miller taking on South Carolina? Or was that North Carolina?
Yeah, I think he's going to be in this.
Thought it was Vermont.
Man, he's been to a number of states recently, causing trouble. So, and countries.
Is Hawaii still a state?
Yes,
I think so. Probably still. For the time being.
I mean, he had a kerfuffle in Iceland. He had a kerfuffle in Germany. He had a kerfuffle in Hawaii, which more domestic, and yeah.
Well, until today, we didn't know a whole lot about this project other than Brian Fuller was behind it, and it was going to be a prequel, and it was going to be called Crystal Lake. That's about all we knew. But now, as of roughly 1 o'clock this afternoon Pacific time, we have a few more answers to that from Fangoria, as pointed out here by Clobbering Time. It says here, yesterday the news broke. The Brian Fuller, Hannibal, Queer for Fear, Pushing Daisies, and A24 would be bringing a Friday the 13th prequel series to be called Crystal Lake to NBC Universal's streaming service Peacock. As you can imagine, this announcement went off like a bombshell within the horror community. It's a series rather than a movie, and a prequel at that? Would Jason Voorhees even be in this thing? Well, as it happens, Brian Fuller is a regular guest on the Kingcast, the Stephen King-themed podcast I host for Fangoria Podcast Network. And I knew if I wanted to get some straight answers on what he and his collaborators might be planning for Crystal Lake, the easiest and quite frankly most reliable thing to do would be to give him a ring. And so, without further ado, here's what he was able to share on the record. Let me make this a little bit bigger. That might help. Excuse me. Says Fangoria, the rumor mill was churning within seconds of Crystal Lake news dropping, and I figured I'd just come straight to the horse's mouth to get some answers. Brian Fuller making horsey noises, neighing and such. Excellent. So for starters, what character and locations and whatnot are you allowed to use from the Friday the 13th franchise? Everything. We can use everything. We can go to hell. We can go to space. That's not to say we will do those things. Although if we go to 10 seasons, I will be lobbying hard to go to space. And he laughed. A24, Mark Toberoff, who is Victor Miller's lawyer, have beautifully and excruciatingly assembled all of the Friday 13th rights as a streaming service. We have the rights to do everything underneath the Friday the 13th umbrella. The movie rights are a completely different thing. They are tied up at New Line and are super, super messy and probably won't be untangled anytime soon. But as far as us chickens in the television industry roost, we have access to anything and everything that Friday the 13th has done up until this point. So there you go. Script Doctor, as somebody who comes from the industry, I could explain this a little bit, but I have a feeling you could probably explain it better than me because of my long-winded way of doing things. Explain to us why that we're getting a series instead of a movie of Friday the 13th.
Well, there's a legal issue with regards to one person technically owns the name rights of Friday the 13th, and another person owns all the content rights of Friday the 13th.
Yep.
In order to circumvent that, it's like, well, we don't really need the name of Friday the 13th because even the title itself has no actual bearing on the story. So let's just use the universe and take another aspect of it that's very recognizable and use that as the title. And that's what they did, just to get that other party out of their hair.
And I'm assuming since New Line owns the movie rights to Jason, just Jason, if they wanted to make a movie, they'd have to go through New Line. But since they're not making a movie, I'm assuming probably correctly that they're free and clear to do whatever the hell they want in a series.
That's also a possibility. Again, the rights with Friday the 13th are messed up, and the Jason series, because I think Paramount was involved with them for a time being too, weren't they?
Yes, it goes back to some convoluted mess. Okay. The shortest version I can tell you is back in the early 90s. New Line Cinema bought the rights to Jason, and that was it. Didn't buy the rights to Friday the 13th. Didn't buy the rights to anything else. Then as they got into the point of making Jason Goes to Hell, they did pay a little extra to get Pamela Voorhees and I think Crystal Lake. Other than that, though, they didn't pay anything else. Because Tommy was originally in the script and some other characters, and they wrote them out. So
maybe
at that point,
maybe Jason's mom will be one of those teenagers that gets. That's where Jason gets conceived.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that part, Andy. But I'll let you have your say before you take off. But and I might send Snowdub the link here too, because I know he's a horror fan. I might have something to say about this. But then the rights go like this. For years, New Line Cinema had the rights. Then when they decided to do the remake, since Paramount had the rights to Friday the 13th and everything else, they had to do a co-deal, right? So they worked together on that. And also at that time, after that, there was this moment where they didn't want to make a sequel because they didn't want to have to divvy up the whole pot. Well, something came up that Paramount was doing with Nolan, and Warner Brothers, being in the Nolan film business, were not too happy about that. So they said, hey, look, if you let us in on this Interstellar deal, we will give you the rights back to Jason for 5 years free and clear.
Uh-oh.
On top of that, we'll give you your half of the movie rights for South Park, because Warner Brothers and Paramount co-own South Park, guys. Yep. That's why that's a little bit of a mess. So in that, they did this deal with them so they could co-produce Interstellar with them, and Paramount didn't do shit with the rights for 5 fucking years. They could have done anything they wanted. They wouldn't have had to share anything with Warner Brothers. They still didn't do a goddamn thing with it. So 5 years lapse, the rights go back to the Jason rights, that is, go back to New Line Cinema. Because you got to remember, the important part of this is all New Line Cinema owns is Jason.
The character.
Okay.
Right.
Exactly. So then we have this thing called the 36-year or 35-year deal, where after 35 years, somebody who creates something can come back and get their rights for it. We saw it with Terminator with James Cameron. I think the Craven family's trying to do that now with Nightmare on Elm Street. So that's probably why there's hurrying their asses off to try and get something going with Nightmare on Elm Street. There's other things that we've seen this happen to. So what happened was Victor Miller came back and said, well, I wrote all these characters, I created them, and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that Sean S. Cunningham, the producer, came up with was the title. I want my rights back. And this was in and out of court for 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. Script, right?
Better half of a decade, yeah.
Better half of a decade at least, yeah. And so finally, just last year, I think it was, because we had covered this on this show, they came to the conclusion that not only did Victor Miller win the rights to all the characters, the only thing that Sean S. Cunningham would retain would be the Friday the 13th name, and that's it. Because even you and I had talked about and discussed, how are they going to figure out Jason? And they had this, I guess, the same debate we were having in the background, I guess in arbitration or whatever you want to call it, when they were deciding how this was going to go, because they decided that Jason's the same character in all forms. He originated in the first film. No matter what they did with him later on, he's still the same character, because you and I had discussed as a derivative version of it, since it's an adult version and it's kind of a different take on it. How does that work? And I think you and I kind of came to the same place. Well, technically it's the same character. So
characters grow. I mean, you can't deny that.
So in that, he has got the rights to everything but the name Friday the 13th under his belt. Victor Miller does now. Sean S. Cunningham only owns the rights to Friday the 13th. And with that, I believe that New Line still has the rights to make a movie of Jason. They just don't own him completely now because of this rights thing. So I think, unless they don't have any rights other than that, because otherwise I don't see how they'd factor in here with this, because they wouldn't have any time.
I don't think New Line has any retention over the character of Jason. They might have, and it's useless to actually even care about it, but they might have retention of the characters that were used in the movies they co-financed, but they were all killed off by Jason. So there's no conflict there.
Right. And I'm just saying maybe there's some wording that they still, like, if they were to decide, yeah, Victor Miller can do whatever he wants as far as that goes, as long as it's not a movie, then New Line has to be involved because of contractual obligations or something like that. I don't know. Does that even compute at all?
Not necessarily, because when you're dealing with character rights and story rights, you're usually trying to get to any type of medium that exists or is yet to exist throughout the universe. That's usually some of the wording that's commonly done in those contracts.
Oh, shit. Andy had to take off.
Oh,
all right. Well, thank you, Andy.
Thanks for swinging by, man.
Take it easy, Andy.
Yeah, and Stunt Brat points out here that film contracts are so weird. U.S. car commercial drivers were not paid residuals. We were actually seen, but in the hand in a puppet was paid residuals.
Wow.
Oh, figures.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Well, it's all about what you can negotiate too. That's the other part, right? Like if you want to talk about car commercials, Brie Larson's the only one that's doing Nissan commercials right now. She's not doing much of anything else.
Who?
And yeah, that's exactly. But when it comes to character rights and franchise rights, I think what they ended up doing, and I'm speculating at this point just because based on my experience, is that Jason and all those characters from the film of Friday the 13th is owned, and any medium that they want to use them on are owned by the rights of the original screenwriter. And the man who came with the title, he has that title to use as a franchise, be it TV or film or any other future medium that that exists or is yet to exist throughout the universe for whatever he wants to do there. So, like for instance, streaming services, right? So, this one here is Camp Crystal Lake is a streaming show. It is not considered network television or cable television streaming, so it's a new medium. So yeah, if he's able to do this series on a streaming platform, that means that he owns the rights for it on all platforms. So if they wanted to make a Jason Voorhees movie and call it Camp Crystal Lake or Jason Goes to Camp, they can. I would be shocked if they didn't have that ability, if they didn't have that negotiated for them in their favor down the road.
Yeah, unless there was a deal where New Line went and bought the rights to Friday the 13th in the meantime that I didn't know about, and he means because of the title or something like that. I don't know, because otherwise, that's my big question is why does it matter what New Line... They wouldn't have anything to do with it. Neither would Paramount. That's the whole reason this is at A24.
Yeah. It means that they've either no longer retained their rights or they came to a deal where they sold them for something that they found more valuable, enough money, amount of dollars to say be part with it and be like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah, because to remind people, outside of the remake in 2009, there hasn't been a Friday the 13th movie with the title Friday the 13th since 1989.
What was that? Part 6 or 7?
8, sorry.
8.
Jason Takes Manhattan, Friday the 13th, 8. Yep.
Mm.
Then it was
I wish
Jason
that was
Goes
a
to Hell,
musical where
Jason
he
X.
actually goes on Broadway and sings and kills people. No, I think he'd sound like, one of the 3 tenors. I think that would have been beautiful.
I'm going to chop your head off.
No,
Simon
you
Cowell just dropped
won't.
his jaw right before his head gets lopped off in the shock that Jason Voorhees can sing, just like that English lady who nobody thought could sing years back.
I am taking Manhattan by storm.
Not on my taco watch.
Shit. Well, anyway, let's get back into this. I'm so sorry for that long ass thing, but it is that complicated. It's even more complicated than that, because evidently they're not even going to get into that here. This has been pitched as a prequel series, so how far back in the timeline will we be when Crystal Lake begins? I don't think I'm allowed to say just yet, but I would say it's less a prequel series than a pre-remake wall series. So basically, this kind of says what I thought was going to happen, but we'll get into that in just a bit here. Can you describe what a pre-remake will means in this contest for now? No, not on the record. I can't.
I know what he means, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's going to be like Bates Motel and Hannibal and stuff like that, right? You want to explain that a little bit?
Most likely, what it'll do is it'll take what is established of the lore, it will spin it on its head, but what Fuller did with Hannibal, it won't necessarily break the lore. It'll just be, oh, this is how they came to that conclusion, and this is the interesting drama that led to this result. Those are the types of things that at least Brian Fuller prefers to do, as opposed to wiping the slate clean and just making up his own stuff. He's not as big on that part. The only way he makes up his own stuff is if it's to fill in the gaps so he can get from point A to point B, and that's probably less egregious than let's say Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, I think this is going to be more in the line with Hannibal.
Yeah.
And I also brought up Bates Motel for good reason, because Victor Miller has always admitted that basically Friday the 13th was Psycho in reverse. Instead of the son being the killer true, yeah. and thinking he's hearing the mother and blaming it on the mother, it's the other way around. You literally got the mother going around, kill her, mommy, kill her. I will, Jason. Like that whole thing. It's basically Psycho in reverse. So in that respect, I see it kind of being like a Bates Motel thing. Probably you're going to have her having Jason early on. You're going to see the turmoil that him being brought into the world and her dealing with a son, whether they set it in the 1950s or the 1980s. And I think that's the reason why they're probably updated, is because they will get into the actual movies. Like we do know that in 54, I think it was, I said before, she kills those 2 kids, the counselors, after Jason dies. And so they closed it down. And then like 10 years later, they tried to open it again, but the water was poisoned. Obviously, she probably did that too. So, so that's probably what this show is going to chronicle first, is those first few years of Camp Crystal Lake. And then it'll build up and set up her as the killer, and it'll probably cover the first movie. As far as Jason goes, I mean, I'm sure they'll tease him coming back. And since Fuller can keep going, he'll be able to do things he never could do with Hannibal and other places. So, and welcome, Nick Weiser and Snowdub. How you doing, friend?
Yo, welcome.
Hey.
Wow, look at that timing.
Wow.
Yeah, he could do something absolutely brilliant by basically having Jason murders occurring between the films, so that you actually want to watch the movie as it lines up with the show.
Well, that's what I wonder. Is he going to actually do it as a lineup to the movie, or is this going to be its own thing, like Bates Motel and Hannibal were? And I think it's going to be the latter, to be honest with your script. That's
Most likely will, because unless they're able to get a contract with residuals, because they're contributing to people rewatching established content, such as the movies, they don't really have much of a stake in it financially to even do that, unless that's what they negotiated, where they said, yeah, I'm going to do 6 seasons, and season 6 ends right where the original Friday the 13th picks up, and then 7 and 8 are in between part 1 and 2. And
could be that way, or he's just going to remake them all.
Well, I mean, it would be clever and it'd be a great marketing tactic, but the thing is, they'd have to not a lot of writers or producers would want to do that because they now have to share profits with any of the repeated viewership of those films that are happening now, and those movies have been around for 40 years. So yeah, lots of complicated negotiations that will have to be taking place if they go that route.
Yeah.
So they'll most likely go the simple one, which is they'll probably do a season or they'll probably do a special or something of that nature that covers the events of those movies.
Okay. Now, Snow, you're a big fan like I am, and also this from a fan's point of view. This is my perspective on this, and then I'm gonna let you dive in here, brother, because I don't think Klobby, you're as big of a fan about this. I hate to assume, but
I'm not, so you can skip me.
I know Mikey isn't.
Yeah, I'm almost the anti guy when it comes to that stuff. But
yeah, I figured as much. And Nick, are you a Friday the 13th fan? You're kind of a Friday the 13th fan, right?
I'm pretty much the first two movies, and that's where it starts and stops.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll give you a chance to chime in here, though. But I was just gonna say, like, I don't hate this idea. I like the idea of being able to kind of flesh out the story, flesh out the characters, redo some of the stuff, but just do it a little bit more tightly. Like, you get to the point where Jason is introduced, because as he says here in the next question and answer, don't count Jason out. I don't think that they'd be stupid not to bring Jason in several forms in this, especially if they can do it old school classic hockey mask Jason, and that's your huge climax or whatever leading up to whatever the next plateau is.
Now the hockey mask, that was part 4?
Like part 3, but still
part 3. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but still, like, I like this idea of building up to something like that, and then it goes from Crystal Lake to Jason or whatever the fuck it is, or it can continue to still be Crystal Lake with Jason, and it's covering similar events. We get a Tommy coming in later, like once Pamela goes out of the picture, then you introduce Tommy and Jason and stuff like that. That'd be a great show. I'd love that. At this point, fuck it, why not? It's cheap, it's easy to do. There's no excuse not to do it. I don't need to go see him in the theater every goddamn time. We've already got 12 fucking Jason movies. But Snow, let's let Nick go real quick, and then I want to hear you, because I'm sure you have a lot more to say about this than even I do, probably. So Nick, you're just a fan of the first two films. What do you think of this new?
You know, it's pretty much it's just one of those, like, no one really asked for this, but, you know, hey, if it ends up being good and it gets enough attention, maybe I'll consider watching. I'm sure my girlfriend she'll definitely catch this. She'll definitely watch this right away. You know, I will hear her out on what she says, and if it sounds like something that's worth noting, that I should say, okay, you know what? Maybe I should open my mind and see this. But by default, I'm not really interested. But hey, I hope to be proven wrong.
All right. Snow, the floor is yours, bro.
All right. Well, first of all, hey, Scrub, Klobby, Nick Weiser, thanks for having me on, Tom, and much love to my brother from the other side of the border, Mr. Mexican Iron Man. And hail to the chat. I'm going to keep it respectful, try not to cuss, Tom, because I am a little bit heated. I don't know I don't know if you want to show my screen here or not, but I got kicked out there for a minute. This is a signed poster.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. Friday the 13th, Part 7. My favorite out of all of the movies. I also love Part 6, but Part 7 is special to me because of Kane Hodder. I also have a hockey mask signed by Kane Hodder, and as you can see, there's a little figure up here as well. And a couple,
you know what's special to me is
wow,
you're talking without moving your lips right now. It's amazing.
You like that?
So I didn't get that joke or not. There we go.
You're more used to this. Yeah, that's what you're. That's naked jolly there. Funny. But no, before there was a Snyderverse, guys, there was a Hodderverse, and we all as true hardcore fans love Kane Hodder as the Jason character. If you've seen the Hatchet movies and the Victor Crowley movie, that's your true Jason sequels, I feel, where you really get a feel of that version of that killer from those movies. The Hodderverse was, you know, hardcore Kane Hodder fans that got really mad over Freddy vs. Jason because they didn't cast Kane Hodder in that movie. Granted, the movie was still okay if you're a fan, but that's really what the fans want. So if you want to make the fans happy, you bring back Kane Hodder, who's still quite able, and you give them their epic 13th movie with a decent budget. You know, maybe bring in something fun and cool like a Michael Myers or like a Leatherface or even a Pinhead or you know, Ash is probably a long shot. but you could make something like that as well. But an epic 13th movie is what we've been clamoring for ever since we first heard about this stupid lawsuit, Tom. And I know you and me have been back and forth about this for years now, waiting for them to figure it all out. And it just upsets me that they're going to go this route and not give the fans truly what they want. Us hardcore fans. So there it is.
Right.
I don't know if this series is going to... I love your optimism. I would love to see what you were talking about, but you and I both know that usually doesn't happen.
Well,
and these series always get twisted, and he'll be,
you're not wrong.
He's going to have a pink hockey mask and a skirt, and Mexican Iron Man's right. It'll be Jasonette from, the other side, and he transferred over. There'll be some kind of woke objective injected into it, and I'm scared to death to see what else they're going to do to our horror.
I understand where you're coming from, and I can totally sympathize with the fact that it's supposed to be a reimagining of sorts. Here's the thing, though. There's two things.
Keyword.
Yeah, well, and it's of sorts is what I say, and that's because there's two things that really stick to me with this thing, and this is why I'm willing to give it a big chance. I don't know how much you got to hear before you came in here, Snow, but Brian Fuller successfully made Hannibal. Like, there was a world where you couldn't convince anybody that Anthony Hopkins was Hannibal Lecter, right? But he managed to make Hannibal a very successful TV show, to the point where there's some people I've talked to where they say that that's their favorite version. They actually even prefer it over the movies. And I'm like, wow, really? Okay. I mean, I've never checked it out myself, but okay, to each their own. I mean, it is what it is. But so there's that aspect, and A24 is the other aspect, right? Victor Miller's involved. His lawyer is the guy who, what did it say, owns A24, or one of the people at A24. So, I think they're going to do right by Victor. I think they're not going to fuck this up too bad. I don't see any reason in pissing off the fans. Shit, Snow, and I'm just, speculating here, but I'm saying, who's to say they won't bring Kane in to play Elias Voorhees or something like that?
Right. No, they did something similar to that in Hatchet, where they actually brought him in as the actor to play the father of Victor Crowley, who he plays as the monster in flashback scenes. So Kane Hodder has some acting chops. He's not that bad where they could use him. Yeah.
And I'm sure Brian's well aware of his standing in the fan. Going by what Robert has said about him and hearing them guys talk on his programs, he's clearly a horror fan. So I'll give him a chance. That's what I'm saying here. And again, but I'll be right with you, brother. If the first thing we get is, really it's,
your chat is version. Your chat's absolutely on fire right now with the woke.
They are killing it with the comments. No, did you see
what will his pronouns be?
No, my big dead
Jason
silent
doesn't kill.
This is great.
Brutally cancels you on Twitter.
I mean, it's going to be more about Mrs. Voorhees at first hand than Jason, right? Like
that's what I'm thinking.
Voorhees versus the patriarchy.
That's what I'm thinking. Because then he goes on here, just to kind of move along with this. I wouldn't count Jason out. I think over the course of the series, you will see many familiar manifestations of Jason. Maybe script is more right, that it's something that will dive in and out between the movies. Who knows? He goes, the reactions I saw yesterday were very positive, but yeah, there's going to be a collection of naysayers that goes right to this, Snow, and so this is towards you, and that's nothing new to me. I encountered this when Hannibal was announced. Some of those tweets looked like copy and paste jobs from 10 years ago, so part of me sorta is leaning back with my arms across my chest saying wait and see, and the other part is more like, well, folks like that may not have to make a living with their imaginations, and that's why they can't imagine. Must be very disappointing to them. Now, of course, that last part you could look at as a bit of a ribbing, but at the same time, we've heard worse, right?
It's also technically not wrong, nor is it meant to be necessarily completely insulting. It's just that's one of the things. That's one of the things that some really diehard fans of any property have a difficult time of doing, is imagining another story with their characters that doesn't repeat everything that they've already known. Like that's a very difficult hurdle for a lot of fans, not all fans, but for a lot of fans to get over.
when I was a kid, they made a series, a Freddy's Nightmares series, where they brought Robert Englund in just to do kind of like the intros, and then the actual show itself was kind of just some other story that was off the wall.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
But I still tuned in because I got to see Freddy. Now, I also saw there was a series back at that time that was called Friday the 13th. Had nothing to do with Jason, Crystal
You
Lake,
mean
or anything
X-Files
like
before X-Files?
that. Yeah, and I actually would tune into that originally, thinking, "Oh wow, a Jason series," knowing that Jason wasn't in it, automatically turned me off. This is the same type of thing, same type of scenario. If the people don't get a hint or whiff of what they want to see, they didn't make a bunch of sequels because of Pamela Voorhees. They made a bunch of sequels because of a hockey mask, machete-wielding badass that stalks you through the campgrounds, and you get to see some titties and some pot smoking. So,
and that's true.
Yeah.
And I can't argue with that, Snow, but at the same time, I was one of those people that, because like I'm more of a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, right? My best friend growing up was a Jason fan. So like that was our, kind of rivalry. And I flat out told him when we heard about the remake, like 2 years before it came out, when it was first announced, I'm like, how much you want to fucking bet? The first teaser poster is a goddamn mask and nothing but a mask. And not only that, Pamela Voorhees' story is crammed in the first 5 minutes of this movie or so.
Played by non-visitor.
And goddamn if I wasn't 100% goddamn correct on all accounts. So I'm like, this isn't even really a remake. It's more of a sequel where they just recover or recount what happened in the first movie and just kind of discount what happened in all the other movies. And then you get to the point where like midway through, I'm just like, because my buddy was kind of getting into it at one point, and I'm like, dude, are you really liking this? He's like, it's not horrible. I'm like, since when does fucking Jason take prisoners?
Right.
I'm like, this is more like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 all of a sudden than it is fucking Friday the 13th. He's like, yeah, you're right. So
there was
like
a lot
ever
of
since
flaws,
then, yeah, he was kind of like, it's kind of like whatever. And he was like you. He's more of a Kane Hodder fan. I'm somebody where I love Kane, but also my favorite one is part 6, so I'm not like as hung up on Kane as most people are.
6 is great. Yep.
Yeah, so like I can live with other people playing Jason. I don't have that problem, but I do feel like Kane should get some kind of respect. And that's for me as a fan. I think he should be able to show up as like, you have him play Elias, or you have him play the adult.
Jason's real biological father.
Right. Or there you go. Or he plays like you could have him play like the Town Crazy version, the new version of what's his face? I forgot his name now. You're all doomed. That guy. And then you have him play Jason as Jason when he's in the mask later on. He can still do the stunts and stuff for the most part. You said he's still making those Victor Crowley movies. So.
Yep. The last one was a couple of years ago, but I'd met him literally less than. It was right before the old pandemic, but about 2019, early 2020, and great guy, still in great shape. He got all dressed up for us and took pictures, and he was very well known as Jason to the point that he made sure to dress up. He actually dressed up in 8-bit Jason or whatever it's called. One of the spin-off things they did for like Nintendo, his old Nintendo game and stuff. But really cool, dude. Humble, down to earth. He's more than willing to come back. I know he is. So, it'd be sad not to include him in something like this and make the fans happy.
But what I was saying before was my thing was I told my friend, I'm like, they're not going to have the balls to actually remake the first movie.
Why would they?
And I told him, I said, and that's the thing is you need to plan this as a fucking trilogy. It's that simple. You make the first movie the story of Pamela Voorhees setting up, young, fully grown Jason on the other side of the lake, seeing his mother getting killed because he hasn't been able to get back to the other side of the lake. And that's why he's like this. And that's what gets him in motion to do what he does. Then the second film is him in the Baghead. And at the very last part, he finds the mask, and that sets up part 3. I'm like, but they'll never do that, Ryan. I said, they'll never do that in a million years because it's all about the goddamn hockey mask.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong. I love it. I love it too. And I know that's what it's about, but you got to build up to it. And that to me was like the biggest mistake in the remake too, was both versions of how he gets the mask is dumb as hell.
Right. Yeah. Even the original version of it's kind of dumb. It's kind of random. Yeah. Yeah, well, they
He's
didn't
not
know.
a hockey fan. Like, he's just.
Well, they didn't
nice.
know the first time he found it because he had the sack on his head for the the second movie.
Yeah, well, the Shelley version is at least decent. Like
Right.
it's decent enough to where the remake though, it's like you actually know what you're doing here. This is a huge moment. So your one version, he steals it from a pothead, and I can't even remember the other cuts version of it, but it's just as dumb.
Right.
And it's just like that kind of takes away, like the whole thing was just kind of like whatever. To me, they know it's just about. So I understand what you're saying, Snow, but I'm also one of those guys where you can build up to that, right? Like that's a build up moment. That's your season 5 finale, is the moment he puts the mask on for the first time, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that to me is a build up. You know, that's the kind of thing I miss in these kind of shows that Cobra Kai still has.
Yeah.
Is that you know that the anticipation is not there anymore. You know certain things are coming, even though you don't know when they're going to happen.
You could
And
even build
maybe
a
not sure
storyline.
exactly how they're going to happen.
Well, you could also build a storyline around previous characters and bring big name actors like Kevin Bacon. He ain't doing much. Bring him back. Maybe have him, do a kind of a bigger role and a more involvement.
He could play a
with the
nice
prequel.
Dark Elias. There you
Sure.
go.
Well,
There
you
you
keep
go.
on saying Elias. Like, who's the owner of the Camp Crystal Lake? Kevin Bacon can play him.
In the
Sure.
original movies, it was the Christies in the movies, and then who had it first? I'm trying to remember because the Christies bought it from whoever it was. She says it in the movie, and I can't remember now. So there is a whole other group of people that owned it before that. Is the whole point. And I'm sure like those first 2 or 3 seasons are going to be about her growing up, her family life, what she was raised with, getting pregnant with Jason, who the real father is, like you said, Script, her getting married to Elias, who is supposedly a nightmare in and of himself. So right there's a season right there.
Finding out the kid's deformed.
Yep. All that stuff. And like I said earlier on Mr. H's stream, I think it was, there's several different versions of the lore, depending on which one you go by. And some he has a brother. Sometimes Elias is his brother, not his stand-in father or whatever. I think there's even one, obviously if you go by Jason Goes to Hell, he has a sister.
Right.
I mean, so like, and basically that's what I think he's saying here is everything is open for them to play with. He just gets to pick and choose, and that's what I like about it is you can actually do a very solid through line with some of the favorite elements that people like about the films and discard some of the crap that is just that, that's not necessary or it's filler or what have you, and explore a little bit more Pamela Voorhees because I think she's a very interesting character, and I did feel like she got the shaft in the remake.
You could do it right, but the people are going to continue to come back, Tom, and you know this for the kills. I mean, the kills got to be good.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to come back for the remake has probably the greatest rack of titties I've ever seen, and on screen. I got to give that movie its credit for that.
Perfect nipple placement in that movie, isn't there?
Oh my goodness! There's one. You got to see it. But anyway, they all have their allure. Every movie has its own allure. He's been the final movie, I don't know, 3 or 4 times throughout the series now. Yeah. So they really do have an open playground to do this, but you got to pay homage to the hardcore fans. You make the hardcore fans mad, and that trickles down to everybody else.
And I think Fuller's aware of that. At least I would hope so. Right? And especially through his experience with Hannibal, and I think that's what he's saying here, and I think Script is right. I don't think he has any malicious intent with his reaction here, or whatever you want to call it. And he's not flat out saying, "Oh, you fuckers are wrong," or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right. I think it's more of a challenge saying, "I believe you do have an imagination. Use it, and trust that I'm using mine too, and I think you're gonna like what I have." Because if anyone just denies it and says, "Yeah, I don't have an imagination," they're looking at themselves. They're kind of affirming the fact that they're just stubborn and not willing to take a chance on something that might actually build and make the franchise commonplace again, as opposed to just an in-name only brand.
They're talking about the kids in the remake. That's one of the few saving graces of that film is that most of those kids are, and that's kind of the one thing they did right, to be honest with you. Although it has a false opening, and I hate that. That's the part I hate about it. It's like, why do you need that false opening? You could have just, because we spend so much time. Do you realize that that movie, there's 2 openings?
Yeah.
The title doesn't come on until I think 20 minutes into the fucking movie.
Wow, that's a long time.
Like the
I'm not
Departed.
I'm not exaggerating.
Oh, I believe it.
That's a
Quick
long
You
time.
have the
throat
Pamela Voorhees
interjection.
flashback, then you have the sister getting killed, and then you have the title, then you have the brother, the setup of the brother going and looking for the sister, and the teens going to the cabin. That's when the movie finally kicks in. The movie should have fucking started there if you were going to do all that other shit. At that point, you're like, fuck, what do we need all this other crap for?
Well, they did that as a setup and a distraction. I mean, a lazy one at that. But it's like, yeah, we're going to kill all of these ones first, and then the movie's going to start. It's like, you got to start your movie as late as possible.
Well, they meander with these
as to what happened to
characters,
his sister
yeah.
is probably more driving than the fact that we already know, and it's not a good use of dramatic irony.
No, because we spend too much time with those characters in the beginning. That's my point. They're doing it as a fake out, like you said, script. It's that Scream fake out. You think these are the kids that we're going to be following for the movie, and you realize 20 minutes in, they're not the kids we're following. You know, it's actually going to be this guy's one of the characters.
This movie's not about Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, right. So let's get through the rest of this. Let's see if there's anything really good in here. Pamela Voorhees is clearly a very important character to you. You've dressed up as her before for Halloween, and I'm wondering if you can tell me why that is. I'll tell you something very personal. I may have shared this with you previously. I know part of this story has been out in the public discourse. As public as a figure as I am, and he showed up like on Robert's podcast out of the blue and shit too, which is not very, but some people will have heard this. I read a detailed plot synopsis for Friday the 13th when I was maybe 9 or 10 in Famous Monsters magazines. This was a few years before I saw the movie. It became a story I'd tell my friends around campfires, which was also where I got my first taste of storytelling. And that thrall an audience can fall under, and the thrall, can fall under when it's hearing a story as captivating as that of Friday the 13th. So there was that, combined with the fact that at the same time, I was working with special needs kids. I was hyper aware of the challenges in parenting special needs children. So there you go. He's giving us basically what this is going to at least start with, right? The birth of Jason and her dealing with all that kind of stuff. One of the kids I sat with during most of the volunteer work, his mother simply couldn't handle him. He was amazing and unique and had a different sort of intelligence, but he was also nonverbal. His mother couldn't get far enough away from him. And so when I read about Friday the 13th and saw the links Pamela Voorhees would go for her special needs child, I found myself in this Venn diagram of influences, and I fell in love with the series. I fell in love with the first movie. I fell in love with the second movie. I fell in love with all of them, and maybe not just Jason Goes to Hell, but I'm not mad at it. Maybe not Jason Goes to Hell, but I'm not mad at it. That's what I'm trying to say there. Sorry. At any rate, I feel that I'm in a unique space to tell this story, to make sure it is loved and cared for appropriately. So right there, I mean, he sounds a lot like a fan who respects where it came from. He doesn't like the elements that most fans don't like. Hint, hint.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, so I think
you might enjoy Jason X then, huh?
Well,
I like Jason
that's
X.
the thing.
That's a
A
guilty
lot of
pleasure
people
one.
do kind of for a weird guilty pleasure. Yeah.
Well, it's a comedy. That's why. I mean, that's
It
what
really is. Yeah, it's got one of the best kills though when he does the ice freeze face smash. That's
Wow, that sounds like a Mr. Freeze type of kill.
Oh, it's great. It's really well done.
Can I just randomly interject and then I'll shut up? But my girlfriend drew blood on a Jason Voorhees in the town of Crystal Lake because she works in phlebotomy. I'm like, oh yeah, she did do that. It's kind of weird to think about a Jason in Crystal Lake. That's all. Nothing else.
Well, there's a lot you can do with this concept. That's the thing. And I feel like the movies have always kind of gotten a bad reputation because they seem repetitive. When I've always said, and that's what bothered me, and that's what I was saying, Snow, about the remake. That's what bothered me, is like there's shit to explore here. Right. We don't need to jump right into to the hockey mask, right? Yeah. We've done that 12 times now. In space, no less.
Right. Yeah, he's been everywhere. He's been to hell, and back again.
He's been more places than Johnny fucking Cash, okay? He's been everywhere, man.
Well, he's never been at the bottom of the ocean because he's afraid of water.
Well, let me throw this.
That's not true.
let me throw this back out
Well, it's
at
been a
you,
bottom of
Tom.
the lake.
We talked about this before, if I remember correctly. We really would just love to see like an Avengers style, Marvel Marvel's badass monster throwdown. So you somehow, if you can pull the right strings, kind of like Sony and Disney did with Spider-Man and all that, you pull the right strings, you bring in Freddy, you bring in Michael Myers, you bring in a Pinhead, you bring in a Texas, Leatherface. You bring all these different characters in for a big mashup throwdown, gone wild in a town type of movie. You could really have something there that people will put their butts in the seats just to see all those characters on screen together. It's a gold mine waiting to happen, and they just haven't figured it out yet. Instead, let's go back and research his past, and let's see how handicapped Jason really was. I'm really not into that, Tom. I don't want to see him drooling and spitting his food up and slapping his chest. I just don't find that.
I don't think Brian would do that. I don't think so. I mean, I get where you're coming from.
I thought Jason was just deformed and mute, and
yeah,
because he was ignored, he drowned in the lake because nobody was paying attention to him. The camp counselors were boning somewhere.
I was gonna say, I think that's what it's gonna be about, is the fact that Pamela is a very overbearing mother, very overprotective, and the one time she had to let other people take that responsibility, look what fucking happened. Right. And and of course, like I said, I bet you maybe for first 2-3 seasons tops is going to be her story, but Jason's still going to be present. And then at some point it's going to have to do that time jump, because nothing happens for like 10 plus years or whatever it is, because we know from the history of the first film, like I said, we had the murders that happened in the beginning of the movie, which are a result of Jason drowning. And then 10 years later, they tried opening up the camp again, but they couldn't because the water was poisoned. Right. And then the Christies bought the camp and they were just fixing it up. And that's what the first movie is. Right. And that's, I think, roughly 25 years or whatever since the first movie's events or whatever. So that's where I think we're set up or whatever it is. And that's what I'm saying. And if he moves it up into the 80s, that might be the only thing where I can see. And then or the 90s, maybe at the most.
Well, Jason still has to go from the boy that jumped out of the lake and took up the last chick and become a big, beefy guy, right?
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So we have to have a time jump at some point.
No, we just see Jason Voorhees for 5 seasons just working out in the forest.
Like a Rocky montage. Nothing
like a Rocky
montages.
Montage, and then he fights a bear and kills it.
Oh, jeez.
He fights that bear that Hulk does.
Nice. Well, and I think they could really be smart about this and pull some strings and bring in, like they did with Cobra Kai, where they go out and they find Corey Feldman and have him come back as the Tommy guy. Maybe he's in an insane asylum because Corey Feldman's kind of a wild guy now. But there's possibility for nostalgia, I guess, in a prequel. But I still don't think it's going to pay off for him, because there's just too many people that just want to see Jason do his thing. And I just don't. I don't know if the allure will be there, but I hope I'm wrong, Tom. I do.
I hear you, and I got you, because we're kind of like, I'm somebody where I've seen Jason do his thing for so long that I'm one of those where I don't like Jason Goes to Hell necessarily, but I even said this right to the director. I'm like, I give you credit for trying something different, right? You at least gave it a shot. I can't fault you for that. And he won't get, he'll take full responsibility for it being what it was, right? So that's neither here nor there. It's just a matter of, I'd rather see something fresh but similar, but at the same time, I wouldn't trust this to hardly anybody. The only reason I have the remote idea that this could be good is Brian Fuller. So that is the only fucking thing this thing has going for it.
And it's going to be more about the relationships of the characters, and you're going to get the shock value with one kill. It's not going to be a slaughter fest, because that's just blowing your load too early. It's all about the anticipation and the build-up and what that kill impacts, because I think Brian Fuller's smart enough to realize that Pam Voorhees can't be a mass murderer like her son.
Well, not just that. I guarantee you also on the other side of that script, that's true. She's going to be a lot more selective with how she does things. And that's where I think that she's probably killed more than the people we know that just from that movie. I mean, you can clearly surmise
like
some
who's
other
to
people.
say the lake wasn't poisoned with all the dead bodies of other people she's killed? That's why it was poisoned.
There could be that or whatever. There's many different
A rotting
things
corpse
that
can do some damage, man.
there's many different things you can incorporate in that, and her descent into madness over the years.
The other aspect of this for you, Tom, is when you mention, how it could be an interesting prequel and stuff, but you're not saying part 1 or 2 is your favorite movies. You're always referring to 6. And as you know, 7's my favorite, which I feel is like your first kind of X-Men versus Jason movie. It's like a Jason versus Jean Grey before that type of thing happened. But you got to see 2 superpowers kind of go at it. 6 is great, for obvious reasons. They really nailed the tempo.
Well, I like 6 just because it's fun, and it was I think the first one I saw. But if you want me to go by as far as like rate them as far as writing, as far as the story, I'll go like 1, 4, 6, 7, and then whatever's left over 3,
right?
And then beyond that, but yeah, 8, down the 10. Row, basically in the order they came out. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where I'm at, because as far as like the rest of the movies, part 6, the only reason I like that is because it's already self-aware of itself by that point. Right?
But it does it well. It does it well.
And it does it well. And I talked to Tom, and he said, he knew how far to take that joke, right? He didn't put the joke specifically out there in the movie. He let the audience finish the joke. Right?
Well, he specifically never made fun of Jason.
Exactly. That was the other thing he told me too. Yeah. And the other thing, though, he said was he let the audience finish the punchline, which is a great example of where the scene where he killed his ex-wife, and that shot where she's got the money and she's trying to offer it to Jason, and Jason's like, fuck that, and he just stabs her in the fucking face. And,
you see the American Express card float
exactly.
by.
And he goes, inevitably, in every theater somewhere, some asshole's going to go, don't leave home without it.
Yeah.
And you're going to get the laugh. He goes, I don't have to put the punchline there. It's already pre-built in through the audience, right? And that's why that movie is so clever to me, and that's why I love it. That one's clever. Now, the best writing is in that first movie, because if you don't know going into that movie anything about it, or if your preconception is Jason, that movie is a mind fuck for you. And that's what I love about that. And to me, Jason is Jason, and this is why he's not my favorite. He's kind of limited in his character. He's pretty one note.
He's a force of nature. He's not a real character.
He's just a force of nature. Exactly. Now, Pamela, on the other hand, I love watching. Hell, there's times where I've fast forwarded just to the last 20 minutes of the movie just so I can see Betsy Palmer doing her thing. Like, I love her just hamming it the fuck up. You have this beloved American TV star playing the absolute opposite of what she normally is, right? And she is having a field day with it, because at that time she figured nobody's going to see this shit.
It turned out to be a great box office success.
And she is the highlight to me. Like, her character, and that's why you made her the fucking thumb. Because, and I'll admit, I'm a bit of a Pamela Voorhees fan. I love Jason too, don't get me wrong, more so probably, but as a character, if I was to sit down and write a story, I know most of that story is in Pamela, because she is, and I've said this many times, and Script will back me up, and so will Mike. I said the two greatest mothers in cinema history are these people, Sarah Connor and Pamela Voorhees. Why? Because they're the 2 mothers that will kill for their sons. That's why.
and she is Jason's driving force, continuing through the rest of the movies. The kill, mama. That's literally what he's hearing in his head is his mother telling him to kill.
Yep, and they play that up with Freddy and Freddy versus Jason and other places. The whole thing where people can confuse him for a second, pretending to be his mother.
Right. Yeah, and we've seen that several times actually throughout the series of movies. One of the ways to get back at Jason, but I still feel like that's gonna be your moneymaker. I mean, Pamela is a great character, but for the fans, they're gonna want to see the hockey mask. There's just no denying that.
I don't disagree with you. If by like that 3rd season you're not getting to that point where we're hitting Friday the 13th part 1,
right?
I agree with you, because you can't drag this out for too goddamn long.
No, you cannot. Because there's only so much you can go over with Pamela's character that we don't already know about her. I mean, you could dig in a little bit, I'm sure, about, what happened during the raising of Jason, but I don't see a lot of excitement there. People tune in for this stuff because of the kills and because of the violence,
Well, that's the beauty of it too, Snow, is you can go through that and say, like, say somewhere between season 3 or whatever is basically a remake or retelling of the events of Friday the 13th, the movie itself. Okay. At that point, once she's out of the story, that's the best part is as a showrunner and an actor, you don't have to worry about telling somebody, sorry, you're done. Like you just said, she's the driving force for Jason, right?
True.
He's going to manifest in his mind this version of his mother all the time, telling him what to do. So you still have this character available to keep bringing in, and she can still be a presence in the show after she's quote unquote dead. You know what I mean? So that's the beauty of it. So
they kind of did that well in Freddy versus Jason. I thought that was one of the few
I thought so too, considering they recast her and they and all that shit. But
Yep. Well, I think we beat it to death.
Yeah, we did. And I think at that time, I think Betsy Palmer only wanted like a little bit more than they were willing to give her, but still. So I think she was still with us when that came out, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll take the wait and see approach on this and see what else they give us as far as, and I think a trailer will really, help set the tone of what we're going to get. That's going to make a big difference in how they approach it.
Well, I'm sure he'll give us some more nuggets between now and then too. So we'll have to wait and see. And I hear you, Snow. I'll be right there with you, completely holding him to the fire if this turns out to be a piece of shit.
Well, look what happened to us with Chucky. I mean, when we first heard about it, we were excited. We were probably going to start maybe even doing a series of reviews on it. And then all of a sudden it did that twist and turn to the woke side. And you and me were like, I think, I tuned out. I'm pretty sure you did.
I haven't gone back for episode 2 of season 2 yet.
Yeah. See, I tuned out like mid to late season 1. So
it was in there, but that didn't bother me so much because it was a new character and Chucky's always kind of had a queer element to it.
Right.
This season premiere of this episode of this season 2 though, really it was like revolving around their relationship too much. And I even got to the point where I was saying to my buddy who I was just talking about earlier, because he was watching it too, and I was like, dude, I would say the same goddamn thing if it was a straight couple, because this is just too much 90210 shit. I want to see Chucky.
Yep. That's what we tune in for.
I don't care if this is a side story, fine. But like,
did you see the latest one with the pronouns or something? They had like a pronoun, rant in one of the episodes, I guess.
No, I didn't see that yet. I've only seen. Going around. I liked the first season, Snow. I mean, the first season finishes up pretty well. It's where they picked up so far in the second season that I haven't been a fan, but I haven't tuned back in since the first episode, so I can't comment on it further than that.
Right. No, I seen a clip where I guess somebody misgendered or somebody in one of the latest episodes, and they go on a complete tangent about how you need to correctly, use the correct pronouns. And this is in the middle of a Chucky show, folks. And I saw that little clip. I think it was running across on Twitter or something like that. And I'm just like, well, glad I checked out of that one. All right. Don't all talk at once now, guys.
That kind of thing.
Sorry, I had a message in the background here. Let's grab some super stickers and then we'll move on to our other topics so we can get everybody else involved here. Dearest sends in a super sticker. It's a thumbs up. I got that already, but I just want to remind everybody to hit the thumbs up again. Then he sends in a super chat saying Camp Crystal Lake could be a neat horror anthology show or Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers buddy slasher movie. Well,
almost rather.
They could technically, I guess they're close enough. If Peacock isn't A24 under Universal,
they have a contract with them.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, isn't that why it's going on Peacock probably anyway? And
Peacock was just the one that had the most lucrative distribution deal, because Peacock I don't think has really much of any say in how the show goes.
All right. Well, I was just gonna say, because I know Universal technically runs the Halloween franchise now, so I was gonna say there's possibility for some synergy there, but I would doubt it.
Well, I mean, Peacock is owned by Universal.
That's what I was saying.
NBC Universal under Comcast, so it's all the same company. Yeah.
And I didn't know if I thought A24 might have been a subsidiary of.
No, they're independent,
Universal.
but they have a contract. Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the others, a lot of production houses are all independent. They're all just have very deep contracts or very loose contracts with various studios and distribution chains.
Makes sense, but I was just curious because I could have swore like the couple of A24 movies I think I have are released by Universal or something like that, but I could be wrong. But yeah, you're probably more or less
I
right.
mean,
I'm
if they're
sure.
released by Universal, it just means they have a distribution contract with them and
Right.
co-financing.
That's what I'm saying. That doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm just saying you're most likely right. But Dash Attack says, who will play Pamela? Rest in peace, Patsy Palmer. That's a tall order. You got to find somebody who can handle that. Somebody who's also able to play probably multiple ages. Because we got to see her at various stages in her life. I think that's going to be a very important part of the show. I think Snow's right. You can't dwell on like the first 5 years of Jason's life and end the show with the drowning. You can't do that.
No,
or like the last season being the first Friday the 13th or something like that, which I could see them doing that. But considering how much he brought up Jason and they asked about Jason and he said, we're going to see various forms of Jason. I think and hope that it'll be like, 1 or 2 seasons will be Pamela's story. Then the 3rd season will be a retelling of Friday the 13th part 1. And then the next season will be a retelling of Friday the 13th part 2. And then the final season will be a retelling of Friday the 13th part 3 and 4, probably. Kind of combining those storylines, I'd willing to bet.
And if they do it Cobra Kai style, they could do it right by bringing, familiar faces or at least something, nostalgia. If they do it right, they can pull it off.
I don't see him doing it because they're saying it as they did say remake Will, didn't they?
Yes, they did, which means you'll have new actors playing the characters, but that doesn't mean you can't have the existing actors playing new characters to give you that nostalgia kick. That's the more clever thing that you can do. Right. Like if you want to bring Kevin Bacon back, but he's not playing the guy that got killed in the first movie because that's just stupid. You're wasting a talented actor for that.
That kind of feeds into what you were saying, Script, about the show maybe bouncing in and out between movies and stuff too. That's a plausibility. I could see that now. Like maybe we won't see a retelling of Friday the 13th part 1.
Yeah, maybe we won't.
Maybe season 2 ends and it's leads up to that first killing, or we see that first killing and that's it. And then from there, we just already know what happened. So then it picks up after the death of Mrs. Voorhees already in the next season or something like that.
Yeah, there's Jason, he's standing at the edge of the lake and he sees his mom's severed head and he takes that with him or something. And then
I could see
starts
them
training,
doing
running alongside the deer, eating raccoons and fighting bears until he's big and strong.
I was going to point out that's the beauty too, is you actually can show what the hell Jason was doing in those interim years to survive.
I got an idea.
What's that, Mikey?
And it'll save a lot of money for our government. Jason goes to the southern border and clears it out.
What's sad is you're not far off. The government already tried using him for the military.
Oh,
we kind of seen that with Rambo, actually. Kind of.
Doing this single-handedly, yo.
Looking for Madonna.
We'll have to wait and see who they pick. Sean the Movie Man says it could work if they make Crystal Lake his mysterious character, like the island in Lost that has strange effect on people. No JJ on this though. You could go that route, then you risk kind of becoming more of a what's the hell the name of that show? The David Lynch show.
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks, yeah.
I think that whatever supernatural aspect is very limited and intimate to Jason Voorhees only.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you can tease a little bit of like they did, like that's one thing I do love that Adam did do with Jason Goes to Hell, the director, was he did kind of tie the Evil Dead to Friday the 13th. I don't mind that. I know some fans hate that, but to me, at least it gives an in canon reason as to why Jason's a zombie, basically, in so many ways.
Yeah, he's been zombified technically twice.
Well, I mean, it makes sense if he's a Deadite, right? Like Pamela was fucking around with the Book of the Dead.
I could see that.
Trying to bring her son back. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you have to set it up for an epic throwdown between him and Ash. That's what people would start wanting to see then.
Oh, absolutely.
If you tease that.
Well, that was kind of the plan originally.
I know.
They were trying for that right after Freddy versus Jason. They wanted Ash.
But according to Bruce, he's hung up the chainsaw.
Marcus planted that seed. Yeah.
Money talks, but Bruce Campbell, according to him, he's not playing that character again. But maybe he
didn't like the fact that Ash versus Evil Dead, the series was canceled prematurely. That's why.
Oh, I was mad about that too, but that was because they pirated it. Everybody pirated that show.
We did get a first look at the new Evil Dead movie, but no, I've actually thought of a way you could tie all these franchises together without the convoluted bullshit of Freddy versus Jason. And the shortest version I can come up with is Pinhead is the key to all this. The box is the key to all this, basically. You can bring all of them together through that somehow. That's how you get Nightmare on Elm Street. The fact that Freddy's in the dream world, you can bring him into the real world that way. He's basically like a Cenobite, right? That's just basically like Jason's a Deadite. That's where you bring Ash into it, right? There's ways of doing this shit. It's not that fucking hard. You know,
Michael
Not
Myers
really.
was originally sent to Camp Crystal Lake before he went crazy.
Sure. Yeah. He's one of the kids.
He was Jason's best friend.
Saw him drown.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but like
And then never spoke again.
those few little minor.
He's the one that
like,
killed Jason to begin with. It wasn't the camp counselors.
But I think
that's
most people could agree that those little minor things that I just said there, I think you could at least buy those to where they would keep the continuity with everything. Anyhow, Sean the Movie Man, as long as it doesn't go down that Twin Peaks route, that's the only thing I worry about. Dr. Coffin Nail says, if they have Jason's mother using the Necronomicon, there you go, I would almost be okay with this. And I think he brought this up before I even brought this up right now, because it was starred a while back. So yeah, I'm not against that, but some fans don't like that. Mexican Iron Man sends in a member chat, or no, he sent in Dawn of Mutilations member chat, I should say. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mike. On the horror topic, have you seen the French movie Maléfique from 2002? Obviously, I haven't, or I'd probably know how to say it. But I don't know if anybody else on the panel has or not.
Nope.
Never heard of it.
No, I don't think so.
I have not.
Also
But
recommend.
I'm curious.
Also recommend Sarkar from 2005. It's India's take on The Godfather. Interesting. Does it have all the dancing and stuff in it? I don't dance. I don't
believe in
pants.
India.
I believe in India. So you come to me on this day of my daughter's wedding so I can sing and dance. But I'm not wearing any pants. Mecca J says Palmer was asked to reprise her role as Mrs. Voorhees in Freddy vs. Jason. That's what I thought. And agreed to return, but she turned it down after being offered. That's what I thought. Yeah, lower salary. Yep, that's what I thought. I was pretty sure it was Freddy vs. Jason. Big Raj also sends in, I believe, a thumbs up, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go look back and see if I can see what it is. Go past the titty stuff. Oh, and Marks 47 has been a member for 19 whole months. Holy crap. Thank you. And then we also had him. Yeah, it was a thumbs up. All right. And then we got Deleted Scenes here, who says people want to see Jason, Michael, Pinhead, Chucky, etc. Deviating from the norm is possible, but risky. A strong, I think he means innovative. Or inventive. So yeah, it's got that white shit around it. Sorry. Writer can pull it off. Yeah, you're right. But maybe Sean needs a new killer for Friday the 13th. Do you think they were trying to say something that when they made Cunningham the killer in Halloween Ends?
That's no, maybe. I mean, Cunningham did come up with the title before he even purchased the script. So
yeah, he's like, just make something like Friday, or make Halloween set on Friday the 13th. That's what I want.
Well, like I said, the good story and bringing these characters together for an epic film, Avengers style, is it's a bag of gold waiting to be grabbed by whoever pulls that off. Yeah.
Well, I think I got the kernel of it anyway. Then there would be the legality of it all is the bigger problem, because you got all these characters all over the place. You know what's even better yet is you make the chainsaw that Ashes uses one of Leatherface's. And he wants the motherfucker back.
I can see that.
Because
I learned this 2 years ago. Yeah.
Saw's family, yo. It's family.
Funny.
Ruben Christopher has become a member. Oh, hey, Ruben. How you been, man? It's been a little bit since I've seen you. How you doing? Glad to have you here.
Florida.
Oh, you did? How's he doing?
Yeah,
good.
He's doing good, man. He looks better too. He's looking good.
Good. Actually. That's why I was asking. Yeah, I didn't want to get into it, but yeah. And then we got Dr. Sleep, who's been a member for 4 months, and says as long as they get Crispin Glover and corkscrew related death, I think that would be amazing. And you know what? That seems like something Crispin would be all open for, probably. He's like, as long as I get to do the dance. Does anybody remember his crazy dance he did in part 4?
I don't remember that.
I don't.
Oh, good God.
Something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah,
what
it was
all
pretty bad. That was 4 or 5. I can't remember. Where
that was 4. The one with Corey Feldman. Yep.
Was it that one? Okay. Well, no. It's the daughter. The daughter of somebody was in 5, I believe, and she did a really weird dance too.
Oh yeah, the daughter of the mother from Kristen's mother. Yeah, she does the dance to His Eyes or whatever by Pseudo Echo.
Okay, yeah, I remember that scene. That's what I thought you were talking about at first.
No, the Crispin Glover scene where he's dancing. He's like, "Want to dance?" And she's like, "Sure." And then she just kind of does the normal '80s white girl dance, and he just does that wacky shit. And they're like, "We don't know what the fuck Crispin was doing, but we just let him do it."
Right. Well, it's the same thing with like Friday or Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, where they let that poor kid kind of do his little sexy dance time in his bedroom. They ended up using that scene in like gay bars overseas, man. Like,
well, he knew what he was doing. The writer knew what they were doing. I still have a hard time believing that, because I've interviewed Jack Shoulder, the director. That interview hasn't come out yet, and he didn't get it. He didn't see it. He says,
I think that's why I'm more of a Jason fan, Tom, because that was my first Freddy movie. It was part 2.
Well, that's bad.
Yeah, I was disturbed.
I want to know what gay bar you were at overseas that you saw this.
But the one Jack, I don't know. But then Robert says he didn't notice either. But I'm like, then he goes and tells us a story about where he has to go to one of these sex shops to get the leather stuff for the bar scene. I'm like, you didn't figure it out then. In my head, I'm going.
Yeah,
because for those who don't know, the actual writer is gay. I think he's still with us, and the star was obviously gay. So there was a subtext there that was pretty fucking obvious that these guys were working into the movie, sort of unbeknownst to the studio and the director. Evidently, I don't know how true that is, but
he's
say
pushing
what
the girlfriend away, but wants to go cuddle with the.
They even have the line where he's like, she wants your body, but you're here and you want to sleep with me, or something. Yeah,
it's whoa, yeah, it's really. I mean, if you actually like watch the movie and look for it, it's very.
Oh, it's very evident.
Yeah, you've got the body, but I've got the brain. You know, it's Freddy's trying to get inside him, and then he literally rips out of him at one point. So yeah, it's
a big allegory for him coming out of the closet. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Poor Robert Englund was miserable.
But it works for Freddy in a weird way, because that's kind of what Freddy would do.
True. No, it was, like I said, it was my first Nightmare movie, so I was young, so I didn't really.
It's kind of twisted in that sense, but.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on the undertones back then, but I was still happy to see Freddy when he was on screen. I was just mad there was so little of him in that movie. You don't get a really good Freddy scene till the end around the
That's because they didn't bring him in until after a few weeks of production, because they tried to get away with using a stuntman and not paying Robert Englund. So he's limited in the film. But let's get to this next story before we get too late in the show here, because Henry Cavill's out talking about Superman a little bit. Now we're trying to figure out when this actually took place as far as the interview, but there's a few points in it that we thought were interesting. But first, the departure from The Witcher. It turns out our reporting was right. Go figure. That he left for creative differences, and their timing of the announcement of his leaving and the announcement of Liam Hemsworth taking his place was obviously something that's been done and figured out long before this Superman shit was in place. And yes, Grace Randolph is big mad. That is true. No, so Henry Cavill reportedly did not see eye to eye with the writers or with the show writers. And it seems like he wasn't the only one. A few writers themselves, I keep forgetting this guy's name, but the guy who's working on the X-Men show is where some of this stuff first came out. Where he was talking about how the writers were openly mocking the lore and basically not sticking to continuity on purpose and character continuity on purpose. And it was pissing Henry Cavill off, unsurprisingly. Because guess what, kids? He's actually a fan of The Witcher. Oh my God.
Imagine my shock.
Well, most of us know he's a nerd, but to these guys, it's shock. So it sounds like he and a few others left the fucking show. Not surprisingly. And in that, though, he was also talking about Superman, and he was saying that here, let me bring this story up. Sorry, that he has a little bit more to say about what he has hopes for when it comes to Superman. His goal, anyway, is to have a more inspiring Superman that makes fans feel like they can fly and protect others, and that is his goal.
Good.
Well, doesn't that sound like what I was saying about a couple weeks ago? Is
What
that
should be.
well, yeah, I said that they want a more hopeful, traditional Superman. And I mean, he's sitting there using the traditional catchphrase from the original 78 Christopher Reeve film, "You'll believe a man can fly."
Yeah.
And then you get down into his actual quote of this, and it almost sounds like it's being delivered by fucking Marlon Brando himself. So allow me to do so, as Henry Cavill says this. He goes, "There's so much in the way of conversations to be had. Obviously, I have a very close connection to the character. There's something extraordinarily special about him, extraordinarily special about his capacity to give and to love. I don't mean romantically like you do with Lois. I mean his love for Earth and for people who live here. And to make people feel powerful. Make people feel like a Superman themselves. They're great people, Kal-El."
Well done. Nice.
Cavill added, I have plenty of desires for this, of course, which will be discussed more in time. But most important thing, which I will be aiming for, is for the audience to leave the cinema to feel like they can fly, to feel like they can protect, and to feel like they want to give to everyone else. That would be my goal.
That is great to hear.
And now this is from last week's Happy Sad podcast. So we have an answer to that now, script. So we at least know when the podcast was dropped. We don't know when it was recorded, but this gives me hope, which Superman is supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it goes along with what I was hearing. And I hate to say this to the Snyder fans.
Very
It's kind of a nail in that fucking coffin, buddy.
That's the antithesis of what Snyder wants to do. So yeah.
Now I'm gonna do this a weird way. I'm gonna let Script go last on this because I'm sure he's gonna have the most to say. So let's start with Snow. Snow, what do you got to say about this?
I have to go in 10 minutes. Can I go first?
Okay, Mike, go ahead first, brother. Sorry about that.
I just got a call. I got a call from West Coast that I got to go take real quick.
Please do, because I know this means a lot to you.
A couple things is that I'm super excited. This country, this fandom, this comic book hero needs the hopeful Superman. We don't need alternative versions. If ever there was a time that we could think back, obviously I wasn't really, I don't know when did Superman come out originally? 78?
I mean, the movie, yeah. 78, film? Yeah.
78? Okay.
Superman the movie, yeah.
The 70s weren't a great time of economic upheaval, time of gas concerns, all kinds of things were happening in the world. It's post-Vietnam. Well, you know what? 2022 has had its things, post-COVID, post this, post that. Lord knows we got gas problems. We got all kinds of things. What we need is we need somebody that can inspire hope in all of us so that we can move forward, not just as fans, but as a nation, as a people, and as a planet.
No, you're right. We're in a time that's very similar to that. We were coming out of Vietnam. Like you said, we were economic crisis and a lot of other issues. We had lost faith in our government. We kind of needed Superman at that time.
Movies were very reflective of some down times at that point, and then in 2 years in a row, you get Star Wars and Superman, two of the big most.
And I said that's not coincidence.
No,
I said that's not a coincidence.
Very inspiring movies that would later a trend that would last for a long time, where they did a lot of inspiring films. Yeah.
Superman I said that the audience was ready to move on from reality. They had enough of reality, right?
Yep.
They started the 70s with shit like The Godfather, and I don't mean shit, but I mean like stuff like The Godfather, and Down and Dour, and French Connection, and Apocalypse Now, and you got a lot of people coming home from Vietnam who are disillusioned, and the last thing they want to fucking do is watch The Deer Hunter, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
they'd rather go see Star Wars or Superman.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what happened. America's like, fuck it, I gotta escape. I gotta get away from this. Why do you think Top Gun was so big right now? It's aspiring.
Exactly. That's what I
It's a
said. We need.
hopeful film.
Yep. Top Gun was. I said Top Gun was going to do great because that's what this country needed, and it has done great. And with that, I got to run. I got to go take.
Yeah, I was going to let you go next to last
care,
night,
Mike.
but thank you, brother.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
Take care, Mike.
See you then. So yeah, Snow back yet? I see he had to go BRB.
Yeah,
he's back.
He did.
Okay, so what's your take on Cavill, and then we'll go back up the line to Script Doctor, if we will.
I like Cavill as Superman. I'm from the old school, so I grew up with Christopher Reeves. I was very partial to him as Superman as a kid. I loved the movies, except for 4, I think, was kind of whack. But, you know, the first 3 were great. And since Cavill's coming back as Superman, I'm thrilled for the fans. I'm more of a Marvel guy than DC, but I enjoy him as Superman. I think he plays a pretty good one, and I hope they do it well. But Witcher, I watched the first season. It was okay, but then I kind of just lost interest in it, and so this doesn't hurt my feelings at all.
Nick.
Okay, so I remember back in, I'd say around late 2020, there was an interview. It didn't really get out too much, but it was Henry Cavill, of course, and he was talking about The Witcher at the time when season 2 had yet to be out. And I can tell in the interview he was very tiptoey around what he was saying, and I can tell he was definitely, by his language, he had some skepticism, concern, whatever word you want to call it, about where the show was already going at that point in time. And he had mentioned that, you know, they're starting to shift away from things that, you know, he knew about. So I could tell, like, right then and there, I'm like, oh boy, however this ends, whether it's sooner or later, end up being later, I don't see this ending well. And luckily it ended up well for him in the sense that he's got Superman. I almost like, in retrospect, from hearing that interview from 2 years now, 2 years ago, I almost feel like he was hoping that, okay, if The Witcher doesn't work out and Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia could give me my role back as Superman, I am bailing the fuck out of there. And, well, we all saw how that played out. So, yeah, I think I almost feel like The Witcher was like a way of him to have a holdover. Like, I don't know if that was like at the time when he got casted. Maybe he was initially excited. But as far as 2 years ago, when he was showing skepticism, I was surprised that the interview didn't really get out there. Now I think about it, because I remember a friend of mine who used to have a YouTube channel, he shared it out when he was
kind of
like
reminiscent of the Mark Hamill interview before Last Jedi.
Yes. It's so funny how those things happen. And I'm like, wow, like I didn't know at the time I was listening to a pretty significant interview. And then, of course, seeing the interview pieces come out over the years, seeing him talk about how he's, you know, he actually does go to comic shops. He's tried to walk around Times Square, you know, wearing the glasses and the shirt buttoned out with the Superman shirt hanging out. He's like, I didn't get stopped once. This is disappointing. I thought that was kind of funny, but he truly does understand these things. So he just needs the right story. And I've seen him work with good material before, because he was a great villain in what's it called? Mission Impossible Fallout to Tom Cruise. So Cavill can do it. And he was perfect because he is big, he was strong, he's imposing, and he rocked a hell of a mustache too. So obviously he won't do it for Superman because he doesn't need that. I'm just trying to emphasize that the man's got the talents, he's proven, and let's get this man a script that can deliver on that, because with Superman, we had Top Gun Maverick, and now we got Superman. If anything can top Top Gun right now and do far more gangbusters, I think it could be Superman. I truly think a good, hopeful, joyful Superman with a great villain, supporting cast, a movie for all ages and demographics. I truly believe that Avatar better watch the fuck out, because Superman is going to be flying high to 2-point-something billion if they can do this right, because the world wants truth, justice, and the American way. And that's all I got to say about that.
Amen, brother. Klobby, you're getting to go before Script here. You and I and Script had quite a conversation about this before the show. Now I'm not going to say much about what was said because the script was talking about things that are kind of the, his own ideas and stuff that I don't want to get out there. But I have a feeling what you're going to say here is a positive thing. This is what we're waiting for, right?
Yes, as the ultimate Snyder verse hater and Man of Steel hater, I never had a problem with him. I always thought, that's kind of a shame because it'd be nice if he ever got to play Superman for real. We still don't know if that'll happen, but it looks to me like that's what he wants to do, and they're gonna have to wipe the slate clean. For me, they got to get the costume right. He's got to get the optimism and the inspiration that he's talking about. I want that to be there. And I don't want to see any Snyder remnants whatsoever. If that's the case, there's a good shot we could have at least a decent movie. Who knows? Maybe a really good one. There are all so many things you can do with him. The casting, however, like I said, you got that nailed with him. I know they're probably going to have Luthor, so no Jesse Eisenberg and none of those horrible. Forget everything aside from him. Wipe the slate clean and recast anything you have to recast. Or just don't break. I mean, even recast Lois, really, to be honest. I think, at least for me, and it could really work out. He is a great casting for the role. I never had a problem with him on there, as much as I can't stand. In fact, it made me even sadder. I kind of wish he'd been just kind of not particularly promising. Then it wouldn't have made it, because you see him walking through those dreary movies being mopey, man, and it's kind of sad, especially then you read interviews with the guy, and he talked about how much he, studied for the character, how much he loved the character, how much he wanted to treat the character with respect. For him to have to be put into those terrible, circumstances, and we really need only see the not so good Justice League movie, which is not very good, but he does act like a little bit more like Superman in that. There's some scenes in there where he's actually, you're going, wow, he's almost like he's Superman or something here, even with that dumb costume. So get the costume right, of course. You got the right guy. And he has the right attitude. He may have had the right attitude all along and just got overruled on everything. I hear he kind of fought back on some of the things that was going on, even with Man of Steel, like the murdering of Zod and stuff like that. But he's just doing a job. He's not the boss. So,
well, and I would imagine that's part of the reason he was painted as difficult to work with.
And I hope that is it. I hope that's it. So get the right guy. You got to have the right guy behind the camera, and you got to have the right guy, producer and people like that who are willing to treat the character with respect. As much as a jokester as James Gunn is, I think he is. I think he might treat the character with respect, because I think he understands that he should be treated that way. And who knows? So this is a very positive thing going forward, but we're gonna have to wait and see.
Oh, here's an interesting one. Script: Robert Downey Jr. as Lex Luthor.
Oh, he wouldn't play it. He'd play him more like Tony Stark than Lex Luthor.
You got a point
he'd be
there.
jokey Luthor.
Yeah, you got a point there.
Frantic Luthor. That's what he'd
So
be.
script, again, like funny, I can say this, I'm sure, because it was just me, script, and Klobby at first before we started the show, obviously. And this is funny enough. We got like probably the 3 guys on Earth who hate Man of Steel more than anybody.
I know a few more, by the way.
Hardcore.
I know a few more, buddy.
Yeah, I'm sure there are more, but like as far as us, like we hate it with a passion. And, so script so doctor, I got to imagine this is a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? This is a hopeful sign, I guess, for lack of a better term. Wouldn't you think?
At least from the actor. From my perspective, and from a perspective of a lot of fans of not just Detective Comics, but of Superman themselves, they've been all waiting for Henry Cavill to play Superman since 2012 because he hasn't.
That's right.
There's a sense of irony when they say he's back as Superman. The truth is, no, he's going to play. He wants to play Superman. He can't be back at something you've never were before.
True.
And that's it. Like, Man of Steel was the Last Jedi before the Last Jedi.
Boy, I'm so with you on that one. I hate it even more, and I hate Last Jedi.
Wow, that was a very accurate statement.
We also have to remember the next time we see him will be after Flash, which is going to be a reset anyway. We'll see him in Flash, but
supposedly Flash will be a reset. We have no clue what's going on with Flash at this point. It's going to go under another rewrite and another
I'm sure
round of additional photography, and it's a money pit, that movie. But when it comes to Superman, if Henry Cavill wants a hopeful Superman, I hope he can find a good writer and directing team. I mean, I have suspicions that's going to be Christopher McQuarrie, just because of his connections with James Gunn, his connections with Henry Cavill, the fact that he did tweet that he would love to do a Superman movie a while ago, but you'll never find it because he recently scrubbed almost all of his tweets. Whether that's because he's talking with Warner Brothers now,
And that's the
or
Top Gun director,
the
right?
Elon stuff. Yeah, he's a Top Gun guy, or the Elon stuff. I don't know, but it's happened. I think he'd be a good choice. I'd watch a movie written and directed by him of Superman. I would also love to write a Superman movie for Henry. I think if I got in a room with him for less than 3 minutes, I could convince him that I'm the guy for the job. Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that Henry has earned himself a reputation where he can actually say and dictate, yeah, I want this hopeful stuff. You know, he's saying all the words. The question being is, will the execution of whatever meets that requirement be fulfilled as a product to the rest of the world, to what he sees when he sees it on screen? Sometimes actors will say, I want to do this with a character, and then the director and the editor will have already planned way to make the actor think that's what's being shot, and then when it's cut together, it's not that at all, and the actor can get disappointed. It's been known to happen. I hope that doesn't. I hope that doesn't be the case with Henry Cavill. I hope he gets technically like a producer, an executive producer credit. I hope that's what he negotiated for, because that gives him a little bit more weight. He can put his thumb on the scale towards things. I would love to see Henry. I think Henry Cavill wants more than anything to actually do stunts where he's saving people and not beating people and destroying a city around him. Yes. I think that's what he would want to do, because he, in some of the interviews that he has, how he defends people that like his movies, and even the comments of people that don't like his movies, I think he wants to be the guy that does for Superman what Christopher Reeve did for Superman for a whole generation and then some.
Yeah.
That's the responsibility of the role, and I think he understands that, and I hope that's what he gets to give us. And I hope I would much prefer. I think the smartest move would be, and sadly I don't think Warner Brothers will do this, but I think the smartest move would be to have a Superman debut film that debuts a new tone, a new cast, and a new set of stories that probably could echo a little bit of what was done in '78, but definitely not be a direct continuation in the same way that Superman Returns was trying to be. Right. I think it should just be its own type of thing. I think regardless of the fact that the world knows Superman's origin, like a comic book, every movie is someone's first. There's things you can address to it, but you don't have to go into heavy detail. I would say just something cursory.
I got something script.
Why
don't you just make the origin?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, why don't you make the origin real quick? Just make it be part of the opening credits, so that way if you're with your parents, but hey, there you go. See, he got shipped it off to the planet of Earth when he was a baby because his plan was about to die. Done, solved. Subtle
basically
reference,
like the beginning of Superman 2.
Kind of like Superman 2, beginning is good, and then the other part too is establish the fact that Earth is kind of littered sparsely with various forms of kryptonite, and not that stupid, terraforming variant of it.
What about pink kryptonite that makes him gay?
I don't think it made him. I don't think the pink one made him gay.
I know it will now, though.
It will now, though.
Well, now, no, but I would like to see some blue kryptonite, gold kryptonite, red kryptonite, black kryptonite. Like, have some fun with that. Not necessarily throw it all in one movie, but just build an actual lore. And then the other part too is do something that people really need. It's not just to have Superman as a hopeful figure, but make the Daily Planet a news corporation that takes responsibility for the news that they are sharing, that they're reporting on, that they're not manipulative, that they're trying to stand up against a pillar of disinformation and whatnot.
So, would you have them be like a news channel or more like
No, they would be a print newspaper, but they would have a website.
Paper.
But the thing is, they always keep the hard copy of print because they know digital isn't really as forever as we think. It's just smart business practice, and I think it would be the type that's like, the Constitution gives us this, and it's a sacred trust that we have as a responsibility, and I think that's why Clark would be like, that's the only reason I work for the Daily Planet, is because they believe that this the First Amendment is a sacred trust that should not be abused, and If it didn't exist, I wouldn't be here. And that's a really powerful thing, because that would convey to other people, be like, yeah, we should hold our media and journalists to the standards of what the First Amendment, dictates. Like, yeah, freedom of the press, but that doesn't mean freedom for you to lie to us. And yeah, listen, there's a lot of layers with regards to Superman that has to be addressed. You don't have to make it for a modern audience, but you have to talk about the universal truths of things so that it can fit to today's audiences, but it'll also fit to the audiences of 10, 15, 20 years from now, because you can watch that Superman's from 78 and it still holds up to this day. Oh, yeah. All the subject matter that they're talking about, the relationship dynamic, the motivation of what Luthor's trying to do, like the guy's like trying to steal land, like buy land and then just make it more valuable through unethical means. Very, very broad, easy to understand plot. Superman is just trying to be a friend and do the right thing. All the politics of that decade are not in there, and it works beautifully.
No, and I can tell you this much, like from what I've heard, and so take this with a grain of salt, and this goes back to what I said before this report even came out. Zaslav wanted a lighter toned Superman, more traditional Superman. And I'd also heard that Cavill was not going to sign on to shit until he had an idea of where they were headed with this. And I'm sure he wanted some kind of creative control. Sounds like he has that now. And it sounds like that's what's about to happen. And I'll tell you guys right now, this is one thing I can tell you almost with almost certainty. James Gunn probably will not be directing this movie. I guarantee that. Or they would have announced that at the same time. Because from what I've been hearing, and I think maybe Script and some other people can back me up on this, is that they are still looking for a writer on this, and obviously maybe a director. They may already have that in mind. I don't know. I'm not going to say one way or the other. All I'm going to say is they're supposedly taking pitches for writing. They have an idea overall where the arc's going to go, but now they need writers. I had already heard that the movie was going to be lighter in tone, basically a reset. It's working under the title Superman as of right now, so it's not Man of Steel 2.
Good. No, that's actually been it's still registered, but it's been essentially shelved.
Yeah, it's still registered as a Man of Steel 2, but it is not going to be called Man of Steel 2. And I think Nick is probably closer to being writer. Script will say, like, I agree with you guys. You don't have to necessarily look. Whatever they end up doing with the Flash, you could do this. You could turn around and basically at the end of the Flash, whatever happens in Superman's role that he plays in it, after the event, that boom, end of movie, you have him turn around and go, who am I? Why am I like this? So you can kind of have a reintroduction into the character, and he's got a whole new world. And maybe you jump a couple years ahead, and you don't have to do the whole reiteration of the story. You just pick up in Metropolis or Smallville or something like that. And like Nick was saying, you don't even have to do it necessarily in the opening credits, Nick. You can just do it in the course of the story of Superman, like rediscovering the Fortress of Solitude and just getting a quick backstory from his dad or something like that, or anything like that. There's ways you can do it without having.
Those are exposition dumps, but I think it'd be more fluid just to.
Either way,
like an opening credits, like it's a television show type of style thing.
Either way works, but doesn't really matter. You don't even have to go to that extent. If you just set up the idea that we know things are going to be different than they were before by getting different, because I can almost guarantee they're not going to bring back all the same actors.
No, but you could also have a Superman Day as the opening of the movie, and it's basically Superman Day is commemorating the first day when Superman came here so many years ago. Sent to Earth as a baby. We don't know where he landed, but we know he was raised and treated and raised by great parents and became the hero we know today. Boom, you're done.
You don't need any origin. Everybody on the planet knows his origin. You don't need it. It takes too much time. Donner was right to do that in 1978, but you don't need it now.
Like Spider-Man and Batman before him. I mean, we all know it. And once again, if you really feel like you should cover it that badly, it can be done quickly and very subtly. Like I said,
the Adam West show did it really well, actually.
Two lines
in the first episode, a couple of lines.
Yeah.
And it's in the middle of the episode too. That's the other part. It's not the beginning; it's right in the middle.
You can even just bond a lot of these characters. You just don't even have to call attention to the fact that they're played by different characters and things are a different tone. We already know who most of these characters are. And the beauty of it is like I said before, you technically can introduce a new Jimmy in this universe because he never really was in the canon universe.
In Snyder's version.
Well, yeah, and he wasn't even canon in that version.
Really,
he's only in the extended cut.
Yeah, I would recast Lois. I would definitely recast Luthor. Everybody but him. Let him a totally new movie and ignore
The
all
only
the
other
garbage.
one I might keep around would be Lawrence Fishburne, like I said before.
I guess you could. I mean, it wouldn't really matter much either way to me because he's not going to be used that much, so that's fine. But I mean, just dump everything from the other. I mean, all of it. Then just start over with him with the real costume, and he's been Superman for a while, and go from there.
Well, Amy Adams has aged out of the character. Let's be fucking real.
Right. Yeah, she's almost 50,
and he hasn't yet.
Well, she looked good for her age back then, 10 years ago. But she has done so many transformations for her acting since then that she's really starting to wear her age compared to Cavill, who is a tad younger.
Yeah.
Well, Cavill's going to be 40 next year, I think.
Exactly. So
doesn't have a lot of movies in him either. So.
I was trying to be nice to her, being she's a woman. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Fact of the matter is, she's
She still looks beautiful for her age. It's just that you can clearly tell that she's not in the same.
That's my
peer
point.
group as Cavill.
Sure.
And to be honest with you, as much as I wanted her, because she was one of my picks to play Lois when Man of Steel was first being talked about, after seeing her in the role, no matter what you do with her at this point, I really just don't think she just wasn't Lois. She didn't have that thing.
Fire.
Yeah, that spark, that thing you need to have Lois. She's got to have something about her. I don't know who could necessarily take that over right now, but yeah, you can find somebody who's got a lot better chemistry also with Henry Cavill, because I did not feel any chemistry with those two at all.
I don't think we need Lois to be that big in the film. I would like it if they took a direction of them not being married or even maybe just seeing each other a little bit. So because it's been established, I know in like Superman and Lois that they're married and stuff. I hope this would take the turn that they're just romantically linked, but keep her to a minimum and just do a Superman
to be
story.
honest with you, I mean, I liked one of the only things I did like about Man of Steel. I'm like, yeah, Lois should be smart enough as a reporter. She'd be able to figure out who the fuck Clark Kent is and Superman. They didn't even do that in a clever way in Man of Steel. Unfortunately,
no, they didn't, because he never was the Clark Kent. Go ahead.
Well,
there was no Clark Kent facade.
There was
no. I mean, I think Lewis should actually play a prominent role, but more as the investigative side, and Superman is there. But I think having her discover Clark as Superman, I think that would be a cat and mouse game, because that's more fun for the audience.
I was just going to say that
she's clever enough to try and figure it out, but Clark's always one step ahead of her by whatever means, and by the skin of his teeth as well. And that's the only reason that she talks to Clark, is because she suspects something, because she's probably one of the few people that's actually seen Superman close enough to actually kind of recognize his face and bone structure, Right.
Well, and that's kind of why I love the Donner cut of Superman too. One of the main reasons is you get that. You get that she's like trying, and every time she keeps fucking failing. Mm-hmm. I love that bit. You can have fun with that, and that's also where the meet cute comes in, because sooner or later, you're going to have that romance blossom there. And I don't have a problem with that. In fact, that's one way you can signify that this is kind of a different universe, is by having her be meeting him for the first time.
Yes.
And
I mean, sure.
Yeah. I mean, the other angle too, and I think the other angle too, I think the best one is probably just to take a page from the Lois and Clark series from 92, 93, and that is Lois eventually loses her love of Superman and falls for Clark Kent, because Clark Kent is the core character. He was raised as Clark Kent on the farm. That's the values that he has, the powers and the things are what he does, because he feels that he can contribute and help, and he wants to be a participant in society. And I think that would be far more fun, because one of the most egregious aspects, especially in the world of psychology, is thinking that Superman is the core man and that all women want Superman, but they kind of forget that they're looking at it by the way that they like Superman because of the powers and his level of invulnerability. And it's not that. It's the fact that he's a good, virtuous person who sticks by his laurels and has convictions. And Clark Kent is all of those things, because everything that Clark Kent tells Lois not to do because it's too dangerous, Superman comes in to save her and tells her that you shouldn't have done this, it's too dangerous. He's behaving the same exact way. And I think there's a fun aspect to play in that psychologically, especially for Lois, where she realizes, I can never be with a man like Superman, because he's, from my perspective, he's a god, he's an alien, he's a power, he's doing all this stuff. But Clark Kent has almost the same values of this guy, and I keep on finding myself drawn to him for whatever reasons, and maybe he's what I'm looking for. And then she gets the jackpot of all. She falls in love with the man, and then finds out, he's also Superman. So now she has her cake and eats it too. But she got there because she liked who the person was and not who the celebrity was. And that also says something great about Lois Lane's character, is the fact that she's not, and pardon my language, a star fucker. She's someone who actually cares about something. Because when you make her that, she ends up being a horrible person.
And that's why I like what they did with her in the Donner films, right? Like her introduction to Clark is brilliant. Because even though he's doing that, you know, whatever you want to call it, the what's his face version
fool.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the actor's name that he was trying to be.
You mean
Cary Grant?
Cary Grant,
yeah. He's doing the Cary Grant bit. He's still like all those things you just said, right? Like she even makes the joke is like, let me guess, he has as part of his check sent every month to his. Gray-haired older mother back in Kansas or whatever, and he goes, actually, she's silver-haired. You know,
and then the other part is she's like, "Can I offer you a drink?" He's like, "Oh, I never drink when I'm fly." I'm like, it's a very polite, consistent with Clark Kent thing.
Same kind of thing, and you know, you should easily be able to figure it out, right? Like, but
you should.
You're
but
right.
I mean, the presence of Superman is what's very distracting for a lot of people.
She's enamored with what Superman is. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and then Henry Cavill proved it the same way, as Nick mentioned earlier. He walked down New York City with glasses and a Superman T-shirt underneath his open suit, and nobody paid him any mind. And it's because there's a certain level of disbelief when you think you see a celebrity or someone that you've seen in the newspaper or on television all the time, whether they're a celebrity or not. You have to check yourself because the media creates a barrier that you don't think you'll ever get to break, and that's something that Superman can, as a character, as a function, plays off of.
Well, that's what's great, because that's the whole beauty of it. Is like, that's why, as I've mentioned before here on MEAD, like, it's not about the whole thing about it's just a pair of glasses. It's just that people think he's Superman flying about all day, every day. He's not just someone walking amongst us, all blending in with the crowd.
Yepper.
I got nothing else. I just want to throw that.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
No, and that's why, even though I do somewhat fundamentally disagree in certain aspects about that, even though it's a great speech in Kill Bill, the script is right. It's wrong.
It was absolutely wrong.
It was a manipulated speech to prove the point that you're born a killer and you don't become one through your influence.
But there is a bit of it that I do like, and that is the part where he says, you know, that Clark's, let's just say the facade of Clark Kent, not the actual Clark Kent himself, but like the facade that he puts on in the Superman movies is a great point. And that's kind of more what he's talking about than probably the actual comic book character, because that is his supposedly his comment on how he sees humanity, right? Well, that's partially true. I think the other part of that is that he is what script was just saying, and you guys were just talking about, is that plausible deniability of that can't be Superman, not just because I'm not seeing it because of the whole, not just because am I seeing a movie star or am I not seeing this movie star, but also just the fact that, oh, well, he's clumsy. There's no way that could be Superman. You know, like, fucker just spilt coffee down his shirt. No way he's Superman. You know, he creates that visage of plausible deniability. But that's why I love what Christopher Reeve did with it, because he was able to take that character when he's doing that bumbling Clark, and really it's just through changing his body posture and how he talks and his rhythm and how he holds himself in general.
Yeah.
And then
octave.
And that's why I love that scene when he's like, Lois, I've got something to tell you. And he just straightens himself out.
Yep.
And she's just completely up in the clouds the entire time. Like, she's even staring right at him while she's walking back. You can see a reflection in the mirror behind him. And he doesn't even have his glasses off. And
Clark
she's just completely
nice.
not
I think
even
she says, doesn't she?
That's Clark. Later, I was like, darn it, I'm going to show you the time of your life. Yeah.
I joke that Christopher Reeve is doing his impersonation of Kermit the Frog when he plays Clark Kent, because he's trying to do that tone.
Yeah,
I could have swore he said he stole it from Clark Gable or Cary Grant, but yeah.
Cary Grant. Well, I mean, here's the other part too. So some of Cary Grant's performances and even some of the George Reeves performances, it's a very confident Clark Kent. Like, you watch those earlier seasons of Superman in the 50s, Clark Kent is a no-nonsense reporter. He actually yells and screams at people. Like, he's very human.
He's never the bumbling guy.
George Reeves has some of those moments too. Yeah, and as
George Reeves never played Superman or Clark differently.
No, he didn't. You're right.
Sorry.
He did, but the thing is, like, that's when one of the things you have to remember with Clark Kent is, and even though it was fun in the '78, it's like he's Clark Kent still has to be confident enough and sensible enough of himself to be a reporter at a prestigious paper like the Daily Planet. A person that's bumbling all the time and foolish and doesn't turn in deadlines or whatever, that's not going to hold mustard to a guy like Perry White. And so you have to find that careful balance where, yeah, he's the type of guy where maybe even some of the bumbling is maybe he staples a couple of pages together and the stapler just falls apart and he's like, oh, son of a gun. Like, it's a little clumsy for Clark Kent, but it's also Superman maybe forgetting to his precise muscle control as well.
They don't make him like a slacker or nothing. No, because like even Perry White says right away, he's like, not only does he have a punchy prose style, he is the fastest typist I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah. My 4 years is the fastest typist I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's the fastest typist I've ever seen. Yeah.
I mean, so then the other part too is like, I love the Superman of the animated series played by Tim Daly, because that's also a very fun, confident Superman. He's a little tongue-in-cheeky, like with Lois and Clark. He also has a couple of one-liners that get under Lois's skin. My favorite part is where Clark literally just tells Lois straight to his face, the reason I get the stories before you is because I really am Superman, and I use this place to fight crime and stop evil, and then squeeze you out of the byline. And Lois just looks at him blatantly, it's like, you're sick, Kent, and then just walks away.
I love that. It's funny you just brought that up, Script, because I was gonna say that's another aspect that's never been played into too much, is how Clark gets to these stories before she always does, and it creates this competition between the two of them, and that's what forces her to start getting more ballsy, giving him more of a reason, right? Because that was always the fun that people joked that maybe always made, especially during the George Reeves show. Because like, what is Lois going to do this time? She was always getting herself in something. Well, at least this way you have a reason for her to kind of up that ante a little bit. She's like, I got to beat Clark this fucking time. And that starts setting up in motion these times where she's going just a little bit too far to get these stories. And I'll tell you what, jamming John Claus on the note of Lois, he goes, only in the first film did they make Kidder look somewhat attractive, the hair, the lighting. By the time Lester did the reshoots for Kidder's hair was different and face was gone. Well, drugs will do that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad to say.
3 years of filming, hating Lester and liking Donner. Like, she was far more sober during Donner's reign as director.
Yes, she was green and young, and she hadn't met Richard Pryor and shit like that yet. So
yep. Oh boy.
And I'm not blaming Richard.
No,
I'm just saying that she had her world opened up, let's say, to Hollywood after that, and she tried it all.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So yeah.
And then they had to make a lousy movie together.
Let's just say, I'm sure everybody was doing coke on Superman 2, but probably Christopher Reeve. He's the only one I have a hard time believing.
Maybe not Richard Donner, maybe not either. But other than that, yeah. Okay, Jackie Cooper then.
Donner probably played okay. I'm not going to try and say he did
maybe
for sure.
Not Jackie Cooper at least. Then how about
Jackie Cooper couldn't because of his heart.
Probably not. Yeah. So I'm talking about like the
Glenn Ford,
rest of the cast,
not Glenn
though.
Ford.
The rest of the cast and just about everybody else, they were probably coking it the fuck up. Are you kidding me? That was disco heaven 70s era, man.
Except for Glenn Ford, man. I refuse to play
Glenn Ford and what's his face who played Perry White, you just said. Those two
Glenn
I could
Ford
see
and
not.
Cooper, they were they weren't hit at that point. They wouldn't have cared.
I know. I'm just kidding.
I agree with you that they probably wouldn't have partook. But
no Hackman either. Come on, Hackman. No way, man.
Fuck you. Are you serious?
No, and not Ned
probably
Beatty.
Started more coke than anybody on that set.
Not Ned Beatty either.
I could be wrong. I'm joking. No, watch. God. The funny thing is, comes out the one who smoked the most or snorted the most coke, Ned Beatty.
my vote would be Valerie Perrin, who did the most, maybe.
Yeah, Ned Beatty would be a lot thinner if he did more coke.
No, I know. I was kidding. That was the joke. But yeah, you're probably right. It's probably Valerie or something. No, but that's the thing. In that era, all of them were doing it. It was like candy then. It was literally like candy. Like.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I can't believe that at some point, and especially if it wasn't then, that especially after getting a big payday like he did with Superman, that I'm sure Donner probably partook a little bit.
Yeah, it's possible.
Probably a little bit. Not as much as Friedkin, but
well, he did make the Omen, so you know.
Oh yeah. You don't come up with that shit after a cup of coffee, man.
Wasn't Omen before? Yeah.
Yeah, it was before.
Yes. But no, like I guarantee 90 to 99% of everybody in Hollywood who wasn't over the age, or at least over the age of probably 40 or 50 at that time, was definitely partaking.
Yeah, Valerie wasn't she in that Dustin Hoffman was it Lenny film? So yeah, she was definitely.
The only reason I say Christopher Reeve is because he was such a
he was
fitness nut.
Yeah.
That I could see him
not.
It's just not being his thing.
The fair cop.
I could be wrong. He could have partook too, for all I know.
If he did, he wouldn't have been able to maintain the physique or
Not
even go through the
likely.
weight fluctuations he did in the 80s. Like
No.
that's the thing.
Not likely, and that's what I mean. He was such a
not
health
upset.
nut that I don't think he would. Because even Eddie Murphy was one of those that he was a pure straight edge motherfucker for years, I guess. Because that was always the funny joke. Was on Beverly Hills Cop, the first time he'd ever had coffee in his life was the Super Cop scene. Because it was getting late, and he's like, I just ain't got no energy no more, man. And he's like, well, here, get your soda. No, I don't want none of that crap, man. He was like, pure this and all that kind of stuff. He's like, well, how about some coffee? It's like, well, it comes from beans and all this other shit. They talked him into it. I was like, all right. That whole scene with the Super Cop story is him fucking amped up on caffeine.
Really?
Yeah. And it's like, he almost bought it too as he just walks away.
Almost missing his capes.
Fuck up a perfectly good lie.
Almost missing of the capes.
Oh, yeah, these are like Super Cops.
Oh man.
I was just there. I was enjoying the show. I wasn't there in any capacity as an officer. I'm into that sort of thing. I love that. Speaking of Super Cops.
Super Cops.
Yeah. You're going to be watching Super Cop tonight of sorts, right, Nick? With James Bond.
Clobby's be joining too. Happy to have him, Clobby, for the ride. Dr. No.
Dr. No.
In today's world, though, that'd be Dr. No means no.
Yeah. No, it's
problematic
what
movie.
we're doing with between tonight and the next several weeks. We're doing the first 5 Connery Bond movies, which makes it
followed
more
by the
exciting,
spy who me too'd me.
Oh, you're right. That's gonna be a fun one to get to. So no, it's gonna be fun to do this Toxic Tuesday month and 1 week, however you want to call it, and do it on Sean Connery 007. There, we're gonna see pretty much the embodiment of the toxic man for a whole month, and it's gonna be glorious. So yeah, please come hang out with us in 25 minutes, folks.
You know what's funny?
It's gonna be great. Yes.
Are you doing? I know you're doing all the Connery ones, right?
Yes.
So you're going to be doing
all 6.
You Always Live Twice.
Walter Lazenby.
You Only Live Twice.
We are doing You Only Live Twice too.
Of course.
Okay.
We're not gonna rule it. Take it out of the.
But never say never again.
Yes.
Cool.
So 6.
Never Say Never Again. I haven't seen yet, but I've seen all the Connery Bond movies. Is it bad that my favorite one is the racist
Thunderball
one?
remake?
Yeah, it's basically a remake of Thunderball because of they couldn't do anything else.
No,
but
I know
it's
that.
Fun though. I like.
But You Only Live Twice is my favorite one of the Connery.
I like
Bond
that one.
movies.
That's the one
too.
I keep falling asleep in the middle of.
I don't know
like that
why.
it was
the one that was the most Bondy.
I'm the only one who loves Diamonds Are Forever because it's the first one I saw at the
I don't
theater.
mind Diamonds Are Forever.
I saw it at the
Forever has
theater.
its advantages.
I saw it at the theater in 1972 or 3, whatever it was. Right on a double bill with the new Bond movie opening, which was Live and Let Die. And as a kid, is 9 years old or whatever, I'm like, I don't understand. He's a different dude. Now, wait a minute. The first movie, he was this one guy. Now he's this other guy, but they're calling him the same name. What? I don't
We
get
already
it.
did that with Lazenby a few years earlier.
Yeah, I was a kid though. I was 9 years old. I didn't know that.
Oh.
I didn't know. All I knew, this Diamonds Are Forever was the first time I was saying. We just knew it was an action movie, double feature. And so I was like, wow,
what's wrong with James Bond? He looks.
why is he different now? But I love both. That's never saw them all in the theater since then, except for this last one.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. That's starting in what? 45 minutes or so?
20 minutes.
Nick?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Holy shit. Yeah, you're
Yes,
right.
sir. Yeah. It's been a good
So,
conversation.
yeah.
You and Snowdub were added with the Jason, and it turned into another epic conversation with Superman. You could tell we have pretty much a bunch of Superman fans on the panel where we could just talk about him all day.
Didn't anticipate talking about Jason that long, but
Oh, dude,
My
it
bad.
was worth
I'm glad
listening
Snow
to.
showed up because, yeah, I mean, it's nice to have another huge fan on the, you know, to bounce off of. So thanks for showing up, Snow.
Oh, no problem, man. Anytime you need an assist in the horror department, you know what to ask.
Oh, yeah. And
Got
check
your
out
back.
Snowdub on his channel. I'm sure one of the mods will help share that, and I'll get that in the description after the show. Yeah, anything you got coming up you want to plug right away?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to do a Taco Tuesday here in about an hour and a half or so. So come
Got some
swing
boys
on by.
competing.
No, I think I should be towards the back end of your guys' show, so hopefully we won't run
Save
over
me
each
a
other.
taco, man.
Yeah, and usually Mike joins me on Taco Tuesday, but he's probably busy tonight. But yeah, and if you really want to have some fun, go check out my stream from last night. I still got it up. It's Jolly with trick or treaters. Had a bunch of trick or treaters come to the house. We got it all on camera. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a fun stuff. I'm gonna take some clips out of it because there's a couple times when little kids got scared and went running off. And some real funny little stuff in there. So it was a gold mine for clips. So
I was gonna be an asshole, but then when that one teacher got, or not teacher, but daycare center worker got charged with child abuse or whatever for scaring those kids. Like, I don't agree with her scaring those kids like they did.
Daycare
But
center.
I think the child abuse thing is a little too far.
That's a little.
So I'm
much,
like, yeah, maybe I won't, because I got this Jason thing and I was gonna have it. Because what I do is, since I got these steps that go down to my house, and I got, you know, Sadie, she's a big ass scary dog. I'll put the candy up at the top of the steps on a like a table, so the kids can just grab some. Well, of course, there's always some little asshole who comes by and just dumps it in his bag, right?
Oh,
So I was gonna wait for that little asshole, and I was gonna go. Gonna go out in the Jason mask, but I'm like, no.
Yeah, you might get a lawsuit. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah. After all that, I don't think I should do that. So like, no, and I kept a good eye on. They were pretty. Most of the kids were little kids, so they were pretty honest about it this year. It was really cool. What I did do though instead is fun, because I had a bunch of spider webs out on the thing, and since I was bouncing back doing MEAD radio at the same time, I had a little spider out there, not little, it's big actually, like remote control spider thing. And it would just kind of roll around and make weird, like, noise in his eyes, fucking light up and shit. So I have that just kind of doing stuff. Whenever the kids would come up, I'd have him move, and they'd jump a little bit, and then they'd laugh at it. So I was like, oh, that's about as far as I'll take that. It's far enough away from them because it's down at the bottom of the steps, so like it can't climb the steps anyway. So like, once they realize it's not going anywhere, they're fine. So.
Well, I had a puppet out there, so it was usually the really, really little kids that just wouldn't even approach them. You know, they'd see him and just like, oh, no thanks, and then they'd turn around. You know,
I can't wait to check that out. I'm surprised they weren't a little more open to him.
Some were. You know, it really depended on the kid. You know, some kids came up laughing and talking and giving them high fives, and then others were just like, no thanks. You know, so it's interesting, but it was fun. It was fun to watch how kids would react to a puppet. And then I'm just in there in a black mask. I just look like I'm sitting in the chair,
right?
You know, so they can't really see me talking or anything. And
yeah.
It's fun and interactive. Yeah,
that's cool.
I'll try to do more stuff like that. Maybe I'll take Puff to the pot shop or something.
You could always dress yourself up like a scarecrow or something too. You know, and like you're sitting on the scarecrow's lap.
Maybe next year. Yeah.
Yeah, and that way your face is covered up, so you can't. I mean, you can still hear your voice, but you don't see your lips move or something.
And I got to buy 3 bags of Costco candy this time because I ran out of 2 bags. So that you can.
Well, I'm lucky. I'm kind of in like a little tucked away area, so like I didn't have to worry too much. But yeah. Damn.
But happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome to Turkey Month.
I think I bought more candy today when it was 50% off than I did before Halloween.
That's smart.
Get your Halloween costume now because it's probably on sale.
Yeah, right. Nick, 20 minutes. You start your Toxic Tuesday. I won't be joining you. I'm sorry for that, but don't let anybody detour you. Head on over there. These boys are going to talk James Bond. I just have nothing to add to this. For those who may not know, I did not grow up with Bond. Okay. So I don't have this nostalgic attachment to it. In fact, I was just discovering Bond recently. So I've only seen all the movies once so far, as the first, I think 5 or 6 is all I made it through. So yeah, but I might try to make it for the one I said. But other than that, no, do head on over there. don't let that stop you. Check these guys out. They're going to be talking Bond because I think Klobby's joining you, right? You said that before.
Yes.
Oh,
indeed.
yeah.
Big Bond fanatic.
So yeah, other than that, Nick, anything you want to plug?
Comic shop show will be back open Friday night. We'll be doing that. That will be fun. And I've got more Iron Age stuff I'll be talking on the channel, video wise and live wise. And of course, as always, Tom, thank you for letting me come on. And
Of course.
thanks for the flexibility too, considering obviously it was a really crazy weekend for obvious reasons. So I appreciate you letting me be a little bit later than I normally am. So thank you, and hail to the chat. Thank you for listening here. This is a very fun conversation, whether it was participating or even just listening. So definitely love being here. And well, I'll see you all Thursday. If not, I'll see you on Toxic Tuesday. Thank you.
Yeah. And Sean, I tell you, I know it's hard to believe, but my dad was just never really a fan. So like,
Yeah. Not everybody is, buddy. That's the way it goes.
just it
right?
wasn't something I grew up with on TV at all or anything like that, or he didn't go see any in the theater. I think the most I'd seen of any of the movies was the one that The View to a Kill, I think it would be the one Duran Duran, I think, did the song for, basically.
One of
And
the
I
best
just
songs.
remember
One of the
that's
worst
the one with the
movies.
skiing in the opening, right?
That there are few with skiing in the opening, but yes, that does have it.
That's one of them that has skiing in the opening. Yeah, because that's all I remember about it. Growing
One
up,
of the best
anyway.
songs. One of the not the least good Bond movies.
And to be honest, knowing my mother, like that would probably be one of the only reasons she'd watch this, because she probably liked the song.
That, and then back then MTV ran the video all the time, the music video of that, you know.
Like, yeah, in that, and at the time it was when VCRs were still fairly new, and so my dad brought home everything at that point. So, no, like I just never grew up with it in the house. If they ever ran marathons or anything like that on TV, that wasn't something my dad would normally watch. He was more of a sports and regular television person anyway. Movies were a rarity for him, and he wasn't a big sequel person to begin with. So, like, that was another thing that, like, so. Yeah, it just wasn't his bag. So it wasn't something that we grew up with around the house. But Klobby, you're going to be on that show, and what else you got coming up?
Looks like tomorrow night. I guess Loki and I are doing the comic book roundtable on his channel. I don't know for sure, but I think so. And then after that, I'll do my wild card Wednesday night on my own channel on 9 p.m. Central. Then tomorrow night, of course, Klobby's Clubhouse with Raquel and Mark. And then Saturday night, I'll be over there hanging with Nick at the comic shop Friday night, and Saturday night I'll be at the my channel for Saturday Night Star Trek, reviewing Deep Space Nine now.
Awesome. Script, you got any video? Oh.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I say, Script, you got any video gaming coming up you're going to do?
Maybe Thursday morning. Yeah. Don't know yet.
Well, Script Doctor has a channel. He's been doing a lot of video gaming.
I've been doing that just in the downtime because I've been working hard on some new stuff that has been occupying some time, and I've had some new clients come my way to help them out with their scripts. Yeah. So that's it's taking up time right now, but if that does lax up, there will be more content on my channel eventually.
Yeah. And oh, Johnny, there was plenty of movies in my house. It's just Bond wasn't a movie that my family bonded with. It's just not something I grew up with, so wasn't like. And I just never really had the, to me, by the time I was old enough to really get into something like that, it was like, it really kind of felt like the hokiness of it to me. Like I had more fun. Like I could still get Austin Powers. So I didn't have to see any of the fucking Bond movies because it was so entrenched in the pop culture already that to me, I already kind of knew what it was. Yeah. So it just wasn't my thing. And watching these movies, I'll be honest with you guys, I haven't really cared for any of them that much, to be honest. I don't plan on revisiting them necessarily.
I hear you.
It's just not my bag. I mean, I get it. I get why people like it.
Way it goes, man.
I think part of it, though, is nostalgia, and that was kind of part of the experiment that was involved with it. But then you never know. I might like some of the ones when you get up into the 70s or something like that. Who knows? Because at least I have that frame of like I know how to watch a movie knowing when it's from, so it's not like I don't like it because it's hokey and it feels old, or anything like that.
I know you like.
I totally understand. Yeah, I totally understand the era that it comes from, and I judge it on its merits and whatnot. So yeah,
it is one of those things you just you either grew up with it or you didn't. Kind of see, I would go to the theater to see it. Everyone ever made except that last trash, but then there was also the ABC Sunday night movie. when they would show up, the new Bond, the latest Bond film, or for decades, that would be where you would catch it if when you didn't have four VCRs and all that other kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
it was a very event type thing. Sunday night to show a James Bond movie was a big deal on network television at the time. So unless you were into it that way,
and I usually we were watching other things when they were on. But yeah, so let's get out of here, boys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. And thank you guys out there in the chat for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. If you haven't hit that like button, please do on the way out the door. And take care of yourselves and each other. Anybody got anything else to say before we go?
Tuck and roll.
Have a good night, everybody.
Let's see. Do I have something that we can tuck and roll on?
I got molested in a little boy's room.